We are recording. We are now live on Facebook and live on Zoom.
All right, welcome everyone to the Wednesday, September 7th regular meeting of the Cohasset School Committee. We are here in the Learning Commons. I will do a quick roll call. Let's start with Mr. Carr is not present. Mr. Kearney?
Present.
Mr. McClellan?
Present.
Ms. St. Ange?
Present.
And Mr. Dial present. So we have a quorum with Mr. Carr being absent. So after the call to order, we will now do our pledge of allegiance. Flag is over there in the corner for those watching at home. We do have a flag.
I do have a far corner here. Yeah.
All right. Mr. Kearney, would you like to lead us?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So I have no opening remarks other than to note we have the first day of school. We're on day 2 and we're exciting new year. And we are now at also an exciting regular meeting cadence for our school committee, back to our pretty much every other week schedule. So we'll be getting a lot done and a lot of stuff to see each other.
Absolutely.
So with that, we will pause for any public comment. Public comment is the space that we reserve for any comments on stuff that has not been posted on the agenda. If you have comments on things that are posted on the agenda, please wait until that time. If you do want to comment and say that you do have a comment on something posted on the agenda, we'll entertain that and make sure that we get to you at that point. But otherwise, this is for comments unrelated to anything on the agenda. So with that, I will pause for a couple beats and see if any comments from the public. Compliments, anything?
Compliments. Wow, Mr. Dye, you look amazing.
Yeah, thank you, that works. You want to rip pocket, so.
Don't see any public comments.
All right. So the next station of our agenda is invited guests. We have this reserved for people who've come to speak to the school committee upon invitation, and we keep that at the front load of the agenda in order to be respectful of their time. Seeing no invited guests and having no invited guests, we'll move straight on to Superintendent Dr. Patrick Sullivan for a school updates.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to share my screen to start us off here. Just bear with me for 1 sec. I thought I'd share my screen. Now I'm thinking I won't, but I won't. Yeah, appropriate crickets. Can you see it? For some reason, it's not showing. Maybe.
Perhaps we can fill the time with more compliments. Just throw it out there.
Okay. Okay.
Oh,
It just took the mere, it just took the mere presence of Dr. Collins coming over next to me to jog my memory on what was wrong with my screen. So I do apologize for that, but I am, we've been thrilled with the beginning of the year from our point of view. I think we were in virtually every classroom over the last couple of days. We did a lot of observing what was happening in the district, and we're just so happy to see the kids back. Quite honestly, they add such a wonderful energy to the building. And to see our teachers, our support personnel, our administrators, and everyone who works in schools working so closely with our students again, it's just wonderful. Every year, you work so hard over the summer to get things ready, to prepare, and there's all that stress to make sure everything's right and ready. And there's always a few misses that we iron out. We understand that. Hopefully, it's never something that's too large, but to see it all come together when the kids are dropped off and to see them interacting with the staff is just wonderful. So I'm going to back up just a little bit, just to talk a little bit. We covered this, but I took some images of some of the summer happenings because really there's a lot that goes into the beginning of the school year. You can see from the left-hand corner, that was our kindergarten jumpstart. We had nearly 100 families. We mentioned that before. Our meeting with the Cohasset Police in the top right-hand corner, and fire, which really translated into right away a wonderful Alice training, safety training from the Class Police, which we'll get into in a bit. Our leadership retreat in the bottom left corner. We had 2 wonderful retreats that really solidified our plans for the year in terms of a leadership team, wonderful staff, summer staff cookout. Mr. McClellan was able to join us on that one. It was nice to see him eating some of the burgers that we cooked. And then to the right there, we have some of our extended year programming, which I know Ms. Samanko worked hard with, and our summer learning program, which Dr. Scollins and of course Lisa Farrell, Principal Farrell worked hard on. A lot of orientation activities happened. We have this is in the elementary on the left-hand corner, that's Popsicles with Principal, always a highlight. The bottom, sort of in the middle, is our 6th grade orientation. What I love about our 6th grade orientation over the summer is it's completely led by our 8th graders. So they're really hearing it from students who have been there and done that. And as you can imagine, it's very helpful for the 8th graders because they're taking a leadership position as an 8th grader in that building. Very well done. And then we had, I thought, a very successful for the first shot at an ice cream social. We had probably 200-300 people there. We definitely sold a lot of ice cream. Thank you to Dell's and thank you to Nona's. And it was great. It was nice. We had booths from CPAC, tables, I should say, from CPAC, CEF, Safe Harbors, the PSO. We had our MECO table where we were able to, for the first time in some ways, see our community members from our new students from MECO coming in. And they're able to get their bus passes. So it's just a wonderful event. And I think we can spice it up next year, do some more with it, but it was very successful. And then I put the picture there of the students painting because we did have some students doing some great work around the grounds. We had them paint the wall near our stadium blue, which is, it's not it's great. It was a definite improvement. And then we're going to continue to paint the bases and the poles of the lights. Just adds a little bit of a nice touch to the beginning of the year.
We had students from National Honor Society who helped us.
We did.
For the summer, for our ice cream social.
That's right.
They did face painting. See one of the little students up top with it on, and
Absolutely.
they did a great job. They helped us set up. They helped us clean up. So it was
Completely. Thank you for mentioning that. The National Honor Society students were wonderful and did some really nice face painting. You can see that
It was
too.
impressive.
It was. And we had some of our newer teachers there. You can see them in the middle. So it's a great event. And then just a thank you quickly to the folks who made everything happen behind the scenes. Our custodians working so closely with our facilities team. You can see them kind of in the kitty corners. Our technology team that does a great job in getting everything ready behind the scenes for us at the beginning of the year. And then we had some work being done throughout the district, exemplified here by our press box, which you can see is now complete. And there it is. There's our press box completed. You know, it is a nicer press box than what we had. I will say that, and much nicer inside. And you know, it's good. It's good to have that rebuilt and to be serviceable as we enter the sports season. Our custodians work so hard in getting our hallways ready and everything ready in our classrooms. And then this is for you, Mr. Kearney. I just want to make sure. You know, we had and honestly, I hadn't noticed that, which I don't know what that means, but
And the high school door was done too.
yes, we did that then too.
Big blue door.
Right. So we're you know, we're moving and grooving on that stuff. So it was good to bring that to our attention. But some other things, you know, nice work with some of the mulching. We're still doing more, still sort of in process, but you can see the middle school entrance, for instance, looked really nice. There's that Skipper's kind of in process of putting it on the thing. That's the bathroom we talked about, the unisex bathroom that was put in upstairs in the middle school, which is fully serviceable. All of our lockers are now functional in the middle school. They're all changed over. And they did an amazing job. They were pretty rapid, Mr. Carr.
Sorry.
They did a wonderful job doing all of that. This was a long time in coming and very much supported by the school committee. We have a new serviceable science lab upstairs, complete with plumbing, gas, all the fixtures that you can imagine. And it's right now, it's working. It's just, we just finished it, so we don't have any of the decorations. So this is going to transform into a really student-centered looking classroom. But right now we have all the tools to do the work we need to do. And you can see the collaborative spaces. So really happy about that. A lot of great work from our facilities team, custodians, and outside vendors went into that. This was a special treat. I wasn't expecting it to look as good as this. Not that I don't expect our projects to look good. I just didn't understand the scope of it. This is from the CEF. It was a wonderful grant that was put in from the Deer Hill folks. Excuse me for not knowing who actually, what teachers put that in at this point, but they did a wonderful job. And a thank you to Kennedy Country Gardens and others who did some Herzog construction, landscaping. I'm thinking of something Sawmill. I can't remember the name of that, but I did thank them I'll thank them in my newsletter for sure. And I
That's
did.
all in the courtyard?
Yes, this is a Deer Hill Courtyard, but you can see we have planter boxes and you have those stools, which are seats, and in the back are some logs for benches. They're really nicely done. So it not only creates an outdoor classroom, but it creates opportunities for students to learn science, do plantings, and just use this as a great learning space. It just went from what I thought was a nice space to a really excellent learning space in a matter of days. So I'm really happy about that. And you can just see some different angles of it. And we still have some touches, but that gives you sort of a good angle on it. That whole pathway is new. Everything there is new. So just a nice upgrade of what is a really serviceable and educationally efficient space now. So I'm happy about that.
I have the names if you want.
What is it?
Garden beds installed by Holly Hill Farms.
Yes.
Stone dusted pathway and learning squares installed by Kennedy Gardens,
Mhm.
Country Gardens, in collaboration with Herzog Landscaping. New outdoor seating from Peregrine White Sawmill and Services.
Just click on Sawmill.
Those are all of the people mentioned.
Wonderful.
Mrs. Sullivan's very good start.
And again, a huge thank you to the CEF who does so much for us. So this is great. This is a great example of the community coming together to create something nice for our kids.
And I will pause just for a moment to acknowledge Mr. Carr's arrival at 6:09, just for the record. So welcome, Mr. Carr.
Apologies.
Thank you. Wonderful. And I will let Dr. Scollins just quickly give you a visual of our teachers. We have 13 brand new teachers, many new ESPs that we've kind of blended in. And several of these folks are new because of the positions that the school committee advocated for. And Dr. Scollins really spent some great time with
I
them
did, they're great.
to lead into the year.
groups.
So if you want to just introduce who
I
they are.
can. So we have, we'll start on the bottom left. So it's Meg Matthews. She's our new specialist at the middle school. We have Maeve Dulay. She is our adjustment counselor at the Osgood and Deer Hill. I'm going to jump in as I continue. It's Hannah Johnson. She is a science teacher at the middle school. And then next to her is Amanda McDonald. She is grade 2. And then behind her is Tammy Breen. She is the art teacher at Osgood. And then we have Dr. Blair Duncan. She's here teaching science at the high school. And then is that Lauren?
Lauren, yeah.
Lauren, right, Lauren Flynn. And she is 4th grade special education. And that is Marina LeBrew. And she is OT. And next to her is Colin Myers, who is band at the middle school, and behind is Bobby Collins, who's been with us, but he was not here in the beginning of the school year. He's a social worker here at the high school, middle school. And then next to him is, I'm trying to look so close.
That's Hannah.
Is that Hannah?
Yep.
That is Ashley Hannon, and she
Ashley, sorry.
sorry, and she is teaching 8th grade. 8th grade social studies. And then Jennifer Cronin, who is our new math interventionist at the middle school, and then Laura Ramos, who is our choral at the middle school. So amazing group, and it was exciting to work with them because they were really chatty. I didn't have to pull anything out of them at all. They were like in 100% and so excited to be here. So it was really, it was wonderful. And one of my favorite things, we took them on a tour, and Ray drove us around, our transportation and coordinator. And of course, we always have to go to JJ's.
Torrens at JJ's.
Exactly. So, and they're always excited because I say, let's go have some ice cream. So it was really wonderful, but a great group. We're really lucky. So thankful that they are here with us and they chose us.
And this becomes a great professional learning community that Dr. Scollins works with all of them throughout the year, each of them monthly, as does.
And they have their mentors that also do
Yep.
that. And it's a wonderful program.
And we had two very, I thought, important and productive professional development days. Our first, we call it just our convocation. I was able to give everyone a greeting. Theme for the year is to find your compass, which really ties into our NEASC work at the high school. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the meeting, but essentially it's just to ensure that students understand that the process and what you learn from a process is just as important, if not more, than the end results. And there's a lot that goes into that. So we're seeing that all over the place in the district, which is a nice unifying theme as we look at helping students socially, emotionally, and academically throughout the year. We had, I've seen Mr. Dial there, who represented the school committee very well. Thank you, Mr. Dial, for your inspirational, motivational words to the staff.
Happy to be there. It
We
was
had,
a great day.
Yeah, it was a nice day. We had Kristen Quinn, who is president of the CEF, spoke. We did acknowledge CPAC and our PSO and our town manager and our select board, because it really is just a wonderful community that supports Cohasset Public Schools. We then, we did serve lunch here at the courtesy of Cohasset Public Schools. We had our Marilyn, our food service director, and our staff cook amazing Italian meals. We do happen to have the benefit of having several of our food service workers who were born and raised in Italy. So some of the food really shows that, and the meatballs were tremendous. And then we did a little treat for them as well. We did have, as I mentioned, our ALICE training. That's alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. It's not a linear process, but our staff, in many cases, were brought up to speed on some of the new facets of that, and they were able to ask very important building-specific questions, and I think left the training feeling great and supported by our amazing police department. And we had Detective Harrison Schmidt and Officer Greg Taylor, who's our school resource officer, provide the training, but I know Detective Lieutenant Lopes was instrumental, as was Chief Quigley. So really thrilled to have them supporting us, and it was an excellent presentation. And our keynote, and I'll let Dr. Scollins talk about our keynote. He will be coming back, and he was absolutely dynamic. And one of the things I loved about what he presented on culturally responsive teaching. But really, to boil it down, he's presenting on what good teaching is. And what it did for me is it activated my teacher mind. And so I was seeing him up there speaking about what good teaching is and how this can apply to every person in the classroom. And I was getting excited, and I can only imagine what the teachers were feeling as they were about to go into the classrooms. So I'll let Dr. Scollins just a little bit on that.
So that's Dr. Raymond Porch, and as Dr. Sullivan said, he joined us last spring and started some work with us and continued that work, excuse me, with us on our first day, and we'll continue that in September and then beyond. But to Dr. Sullivan's point around that cultural responsive, and he actually called it cultural responsive learning, and that includes the practices. So I think it was well received. The teachers really liked him last year and really felt that he was easy to understand and approachable, and they walked away with strategies. And I would say the same as for this time. And so we've done a lot of collaborating together around what does this look like and how can we continue to make sure that everyone feels that they are included and that we are looking at our resources and our practices to make sure that everyone's represented. So it was really excellent, and I'm thrilled to continue this partnership with him. But he is, I did mention where he's from. He is from the Burlington Public Schools, where he is the director of equity and inclusion for the public schools up there. So it's a great partnership. I'm really thrilled to be able to do it.
I am too, and I loved his angle about the power of explicit instruction, assessment, using data to really not only see where your students are coming into the classroom, but to see what they learn coming out of the classroom and using that as a formative tool. And then his stressing the power of relationships. And that was coming through everything that he presented to us. It was really powerful. So thank you, Dr. Scollins, for helping to organize that. And then we always allow our teachers a sufficient amount of time in the building the next day. I don't know if you want to talk about some of the things they did.
Absolutely. So at the elementary level, we really were focusing on literacy And so at the Osgood School, we are implementing Haggerty, which is our phonemic awareness program for our K through 2 students. So they had time to learn about the tools and kind of go through the resources, as well as our reading specialist, Stephanie Stone, at the Osgood gave some professional development on how to use the tool, because it was really the first time they'd seen it. But it's the nice thing about it's a very user friendly, and the students like it too. So it's a nice program. And then at the Deer Hill School, we had our consultants from Teaching Learning Alliance come in and work with each grade level around Reader's Workshop and the implementation of the units of study, which was a continuation of our spring work. And on top of that, in addition to that, Sarah McDonald, who is our reading specialist at the Deer Hill School, or one of them, she has was doing a lot of work on word study, because we really know that we need to help our students with multiple syllabic words, kind of hard for them to break down. So 4th and 5th grade have really been working on that, and we'll continue that work. The middle school, certainly I already talked about Open SciEd, which is the science program we're using. But they also did a lot of work on looking at our resources that we are using and making sure that they use a culturally responsive lens. So they did a lot of work with that at the middle school. And then the high school is NEASC. So they are really, really dialing in and really looking at all of our programming, because they're in that first stage of pulling all that information together. So it's a lot of collaboration.
Yeah, and that's a rigorous analysis,
It's
and it's really looking at all of our academic programming and everything that we offer to sports students. So it's a very important step for the high school.
Right. And Principal Scott has done a nice job organizing it and facilitating all the programming. So.
Awesome. And then we have some wonderful images here of just some really happy kids. We had to get a picture of these two guys with tinfoil hats. Remember what they said they were?
I said, talk to me about your hats. And he said, well, you have to come to school with a tinfoil hat. And I said, okay, that was it. And I
They
said,
just
"Fantastic." They were
Being
just
kids
so happy.
wearing tinfoil hats. I just thought that was
They
very
were so
cool.
joyous.
Yeah,
all of them.
there wasn't a lot of stress there.
No.
And then the fact that they're wearing Dodgers and New York shirts stressed me out a little bit, but I didn't even get on.
To look at it as real culturally responsive.
But again, like I said, it just reminds us all why we're here when you see.
And all the
these-
hugs that were
these
happening
kids.
at Deer Hill, they were, the kids were like screaming when their friends were coming.
I know.
And
We had to
just
get a couple
Giving
of
them
them.
hugs and welcoming them. Yeah,
It was a nice scene, even though it was raining.
they did.
This is the first day. Our buses went off, I don't know, without a hitch, but as close to without a hitch as I've witnessed since I've been here. Really great job by Ray and Sue and Geraldine and everyone who worked on that Geraldine works in our business office, the bus routes. I think it's safe to say that Trans Finder is a success, or it's moving towards being a success. We have more and more people. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But anyway, kudos to them. And I think our drop-offs and pickups were pretty good. But today at 8:10, there was no one left to be dropped off at the high school. And the school starts at 8:15. So that cleared out very quickly. I think it has a lot to do with our buses being full, and people are making an effort to get here a little earlier, but I hope that keeps up. So that was really nice. And we're always so happy to welcome our METCO students again, and you can see some of them here. And we're just so proud to be a METCO district. A lot of orientation activities. This is the 6th grade orientation, and you can see, and I like this as a parent, because I think, one of the first things I want when my kid goes into a building and particularly new buildings, to feel comforted and to know that there's going to be a support network around my child. And I love what he has here, ask for help, make the most of each moment, and get involved. And that's coming right from Principal Mills. And then just seeing people like actually the one on the right's a really good picture of the kids.
Isn't that great? They were so funny. They
Yeah.
were waiting and waiting. So
It
I
doesn't
waved
come
to
off
them
on the
and
slide,
they
but
said, can I take your picture? And they said, yes.
But it was a nice beginning there.
It's my hubby in the middle.
Yes, that's right. That's true. I was greeting Mr. St. Ange. So we have some, these are just Our cafeteria is going well, where we had, we're still working out a couple of kinks in lunch, but nothing major. And just some of the foods that we were serving here, some of the more nutritious options. I know we're gonna be doing more work on that. And just,
It's just so
the
fun.
gang coming back together.
They were just-
Awesome to see. Look, that's a great picture. I love that picture. Didn't take it, but it's a great picture. Nice job.
Oh, my God. Just-
A lot of smiles, a lot of happy kids.
Missing teeth.
This is a good example of a student that I believe is coming back and seeing
There's
his
a
last
lot
year's
of hugs.
teacher.
Yeah,
We
there's,
had a lot of that, particularly in the kindergartners coming in. I'm sorry, and the first graders coming in and seeing their kindergarten
Right.
teachers, and almost to a kid, they were hugging.
yeah, and the first day the kindergarten isn't there, so the kindergarten teachers are helping to acclimate all the students, so they have free hands.
Mhm. And, we obviously have the kindergarten orientation at the end of the year, and we do some things in the summer, but we also have that sort of soft start at the beginning where they come in with their students, with their parents come in with their students. And that's nice to see. And kudos to Principal Farrell, does just a tremendous job making everybody feel comfortable. I was able to just sit back and watch this, and I've seen it happen before, but I watched her greet every kid coming in with their guardian, parent, and just the way she engaged with them was very special and very warm. So if the first impression means something, we definitely gave a good one, Principal Farrell. So thank you, Principal Farrell, for that. Just the kids coming in. This is a funny moment. So the kids, for me, it was really cute. The kids on the left were clearly sent downstairs to deliver something to the office and were told, go together as partners and don't let go
Never let go.
of the thing.
All the way down the stairs.
And they
Never-
they never let go. And we watched them walk right into the office. They were just really cute.
This is Mrs. DeLeo's class.
Yeah, they were all wearing sunglasses. I think she must have given them the
She,
sunglasses.
well, she
Oh, we
stayed
know
brought
why.
us,
Your
yes,
future's so bright.
yeah, because your future's so bright,
Yeah,
exactly. And
future's so
they-
bright, you gotta wear shades, and that was the
so
theme
they were
of
all
that
excited to
classroom.
take those out so we could get their.
And they
picture.
told us that too. We said, why are you wearing sunglasses? In unison, they said, because our future's so bright, we gotta wear shades. Again, getting to know the kids. And there's Principal Farrell greeting, just as I said, each kid coming in, poor Principal Farrell hopefully gets off that scooter soon.
And these are
Doc-
kindergarten orientation, they
Yeah.
were so excited, I had to grab them.
And Dr. Scoggins, you caught an action photo, of
I
a kid
did, I thought
jumping.
that was great.
That actually, she's
There's
not
two of them.
falling down the stairs, just for the record.
They were both jumping.
I would prefer to say leaping for joy.
They were so excited.
And just our kids coming in.
This was kindergarten.
Yeah, this is today, kindergartners coming in. I just thought you'd enjoy these pictures because it just gives you a good feeling.
That's great.
Yeah. So,
Um,
LaCory,
Jacory?
Chakori was awesome. I just met him. I
Yes,
met
he's
him.
kindergartner.
He was a kindergartner coming in and I struck up a conversation with him. But he was good. I think he was a little horrified. I was taking a picture like this of him, but it's a good moment for me. And at the heart of everything is teaching. So we just, getting to know the kids. And I was amazed second day how many teachers and Ms. McClellan is able to do some of the walkthrough with us and just today's walkthrough, just to see the teachers calling the kids by name and getting the names. It was a very comfortable atmosphere. It didn't feel like going into the rooms like they didn't know each other, which it's hard to accomplish. It's hard to do in one day. But you can see this is just some examples of some things happening throughout the district over the last few days. And that's something we'll hold off on. So I wanted to share all that and just see if you had any questions, but I thought you'd just enjoy that as sort of an update of what's been happening in the last 2 days.
Any questions from the committee? Any public comment?
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a good start. We got 2 more days left in the week, so we're not going to start resting on our laurels, but it was a nice start, a very nice feeling in the buildings.
Yeah, it's also really nice to, I mean, we were acknowledging it at my school today, like, this is the first start of, it's been 3 years since we started school like this.
That's right.
And it feels really different and it feels really good to have kids like jumping around and smiling and hugging and being able to do everything that they want to do and it's natural and it's a huge relief.
I think you can feel it. I think that's why
It's-
it
it's
just feels
palpable.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, so extra special this year.
Yes,
Yeah.
completely. Good 2 days.
Great. Yeah, we're happy to be on the journey of another year.
Yes,
So good start.
absolutely.
All right.
All right, moving on. So I did want to update a bit because we had talked about some of the facilities and readiness of the buildings. And just to let you all know, after our meeting last time, Sue and I immediately met with our now head custodian, Bob Tusher, and walked the buildings, all of the buildings with him. So at 8:30, we said we just did a little chart. We kind of looked at hallways, stairways, restrooms, classrooms, courtyards, and the grounds. And this is just my notes, but we were able to get a good sense of, all of these have to continue during a continuous cycle. But if you think about 8:30, with Labor Day and all, that is like right before we start school. So you better be close to where you need to be. And if you're not, then we better work hard to make sure we are in the next few days. And we did see some things that needed to be done. And this is sort of a kind of a longer list of things that we saw. And some of them we kind of patched and dealt with, but you might be seeing these on future capital requests. There's some bubbling of the foyer epoxy and the entrance to the high school, for instance, something that's still there, but we were able to, patch it a bit. We had some wires hanging down from work being done, so we just need to make sure that was done. Making sure all the water stations and hydration stations are back to normal at all schools. We're about 80% there throughout the district. The high school, I believe, is completely done, but we're not quite there at the elementaries yet, and it's just a matter of putting the hardware back on. But that I expect to be done in the next couple of days. We talked about the lab renovation that needed still to be done at 8:30, and we finished that. We had the garden club was working at the stairways, and the stairway down here was a bit of a mess, so they cleaned that. That was good. And you can just see them. I'm not going to read all of them, but some of the things we still have to check. We still have to do. We checked on some of these today. Parking lots do need some work still, need some weeding. We're continually sweeping things, and obviously you sweep it and the next day you're gonna sweep it again. It's ongoing, but just get a sense for it. And we saw some small things that were there from over the summer that we needed to be taken care of. But you get a good sense for some of the work that we did. And now we have that cycle where we can be having our custodians go outside on a routine to do certain things. And I thought for all intents and purposes, I think we did some good work towards the end of the summer to pull it all together. But as we've noted before, it's an ongoing process. So I just wanted everyone here to know that we did look at that, and we did go through the facilities needs, and I don't know if there's any questions on that.
Mr. Carr, any questions?
I think it's terrific to track this stuff at this level of detail. This is really excellent.
Thanks.
Great way to do it.
Mr. Kearney?
Yeah, I just have more of a comment. It looks a lot better coming in here, and you just start to see some pride in the school. And I noticed a big difference in the last couple of weeks, and to know that the custodians are working Saturdays, and you see the mulch, and it's the little things. It's the even last night with the athletic director telling the kids if they see something, pick it up, have some
That's right.
pride.
That's right.
And seeing that now that we all kind of get that, like this is all our school.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid to pick up something, even if you're a parent, you see something. I mean, I've done it. It's there, and
That's right.
make it look better. And you're starting to see that. And it's really a good feeling to know that we're on the right track. So and all your staff, and again, with transportation, I don't take the school bus, but I feel more confident with the transportation,
Mhm.
knowing how hard you guys have worked on it. So as a school committee member, I'm really thrilled about it. Can't comment as a parent, but I can comment as a school committee member that you're starting to see things go in the right direction. It's really nice to see.
Well, thank you. I would say one thing that I'd say very proud of is we have a very resilient and adaptive bus driver crew. I mean, they have been through a lot, and as have any bus driver crew, but that helps because they really are, they've all done each other's routes. It's gonna help us if we ever needed anything and there was a safety situation. They really do know Cohasset now, and we're getting the new drivers up to snuff on that, but I think it'll pay off in the long run. And I think you're seeing it with a more efficient bus pickup
I
now.
did also notice the signage of like, it's just the little things.
Yep.
There's a sign there that's, safety, like check in with the front office.
Mhm.
Notice those two signs. Also noticed the crosswalk on the side that comes up near the athletic fields.
Mhm.
I think that's huge. I also think that should be painted.
It should be painted, and that's in the works. Yeah,
That is the scariest spot in the school.
I would agree with you 100%.
So, it's nice to see that we're actually addressing that. So,
Yeah, it is, and if you've noticed, there's also, although, we certainly want to be welcoming, we do have signs that indicate that really shouldn't be walking on school grounds during school. It is a safety concern, so, I personally live in Marshfield, right next to the school building, but I don't walk there during the school day because it's just not for me to do.
And you're
You're
here.
here. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
If you're there, there's lots of problems.
That's a good point. That's a good point. But if I were there, I wouldn't walk there. I'm very conscious of it.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Mr. Conley, comments, thoughts?
No comment.
And Ms. Allen?
I just love seeing that list in the works. I feel like we've been talking about that for a while. It's great to see it. Obviously, I'm passionate about bathroom latches
Well, you
and it's
addressed that
on there and I saw that you addressed it. It's just nice to know, like, yep, it's on the list. It's checked off. We looked at it. Everyone can peacefully go to the bathroom.
They can. There's
It's important.
some longer term thing we want to do with the stall and with the stall kitchen.
Yeah.
But we were able to.
Yeah, it's just a really big part of feeling safe during the day.
Yeah. Well, and for families to know that
Yeah.
their students are going to be safe
Exactly.
when they're in the bathroom. I mean, they're going to be safe, but
Right, of
But
course,
there's
but it's great
privacy.
to have that cycle
privacy,
in place.
that social emotional
momentum.
safety that
Yeah.
it's going to
Yeah, yeah,
close when you shut the
Right.
door. Right. Yeah.
and
That's-
stay shut, and you don't need to bring somebody. No, it's just great, that's great momentum to have started.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your efforts on that.
Can I just add one thing? Just those crossing things were so effective. I saw them go out the first day. I was dropping my daughter off. People were paying attention to it. Those little things, those additions go a long way.
Thank
I
you.
brought some food up for the sports thing last night. People were paying attention to it. Just I think the flow worked much better.
Yes.
It's a nice addition there.
Yeah, thank you. That was after from this meeting, we did have a meeting with the police about drop off pickup, and that was it. And that was their suggestion. They said, look, it's an unfortunate, from my perspective, construction feature because of the way the loop pinches in and the way the sun hits as you're that time of day as you're coming around. But there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Kids are going to cross there. In fact, there's even a wheelchair accessible ramp there. So let's at least pronounce it, make it clear that there are going to be kids in there at times, and I think that will pay off. Yeah.
I also love the checklist, love what you're doing there. I do want to use this as an inflection point to make an observation both to the administration and to our fellow school committee members. This is a really good example of the school administration, Dr. Sullivan, your team, responding to us as school committee members, especially Mr. Kearney. I know you have been banging the drum for pride in our school grounds, and I want to make the observation that we're seeing response, and Ms. St. Ange, same with you, and bathroom latches. So these things our administration is responding. We're getting heard. This is a great dynamic. So keep up the observations,
Yeah,
keep up
that's
the
good.
responsiveness. This is how we get to where we need our schools to be, one little step at a time.
Thank you.
So thank you for all your work.
Great, much appreciated. With any more comments? Sorry.
No.
Okay, I did want to show quickly, I sent make sure I get this right, yep. I sent all of you a list of the safety work we did over the summer. We did quite a lot, including updating our crisis plan, which is on the website, our manual, which is an internal document shared with the Cohasset Police and Fire, our handbook safety revisions. We have a whole list of additional safety requirements for our staff. We were able to sign an additional memorandum of understanding with our school resource officer, with the Cohasset Police and Chief Quigley. And then I shared with you our staff to student incident procedure. If there's ever a situation there, we have that published on the website. We have a bullying investigation flow chart for administrators. We're actually going to put that on the website too. I will send out in my newsletter a safety issue. It probably won't be this one, it'll be the next one. And that will have all of this on it that is appropriate for families. And it will particularly talk about bullying and we're required to do this yearly, but it will fulfill that requirement, but it will also point the community to resources should they have any situations that require that. This is very important to us that we keep students safe in that regard, and it's paramount part of our job. So, and then there are some new regulations regarding bullying and our need to notify students about bullying and other harassment issues and procedures we have and safeguards we have regarding those for students who are participating in after-school sports or activities. We're going to talk about handbook language that I'll be asking for a vote about today, but I gave you that information. We did work on what we call a potential threat protocol. That is when we have questions whether a student has made a threat and what we do with that information, how we take it, how we deal with the student who is alleged to have made the threat, how we communicate to that student's families, how we deal with the entire school community, connecting with Cohasset Police, of course, and everything that goes into that. We have a protocol for that I'm planning on publishing as well and putting out there. And then eventually there may be some more handbook language with that, but that would be something that the policy subcommittee would do. Bus accident procedures and protocols, we went from soup to nuts on policy and procedures regarding a bus accident. We created a chart for our bus drivers so they know exactly what's happening, but not only that, we spelled out responsibilities for our principals, responsibilities for our transportation supervisor, responsibilities for superintendent or my designee, which would be one of Sue, Barbara, or Leslie, depending on where we were. Probably Sue in this case, but it could be Leslie or Barbara. Of course, what the Cohasset Police will do as well. So everybody will understand that. Because, in those moments, if you don't have really well-defined procedures, those are tense moments. And people need to be able to go somewhere and be able to talk through it. And as I'm guiding it, or Ray's guiding it, or Sue's guiding it, we need to be able to look at the same thing and not miss a step. And that's why it was really important. And the bus drivers are all trained on this as well. So that was good. And then some other safety measures that we're addressing this year that came from some reports that we have already talked about, that we had when we had AI3, the architectural firm, come in and do a full facilities report. There was a safety component to that, and we're working on those and updating some of the things that they asked us to update in the best interest of safety for our students and staff. So you can just see, this is just some of the work we did here. Is it frozen? No, it's not. It's just stubborn. The last one I would just want to update you, we're going to do some crisis team training. So we do have a district-wide crisis team, and then we have crisis teams at each building. So in the event there was, God forbid, a tragedy in our district, I mean, Noel has had some tragedies recently in other districts, we would be able to rally this team together and then to be able to discuss and make sure we don't miss anything as we're helping the community in whatever the situation may be. It's time for us to get retrained, and we have some ideas on how we're going to get that training. So I just wanted you to know that's something in the works. That's it.
Great.
I don't know if you have any questions on that, because I did send you a lot of information.
I'll open to Mr. Carr. Questions, comments?
Sure.
Excellent. Mr. Kearney?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. As far as this, I wasn't able to attend, I guess it would have been an open meeting. But there is still that problem of 3A and Pond Street. Taking the left there, have to jump the light. Teachers have gotten in accidents there. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
If you're coming down 3A, you're going to take a left at Pond Street.
If you're coming left or right.
Yeah, you better jump in front of that truck that's in front of you. Or you're gonna have to wait for the other line. And it's just, there's accidents have been happening.
Right.
Was anything that spoken about?
We did. I did talk to them, but I think and I don't want to speak for Quest Police, but I believe they're a little limited in what they can do because it's
State.
It's a state.
So you would have to maybe ask to address that with the state?
I'm out of my league on this. I can find out more information for you.
Because if it had that if it had a light that just went left for
Yeah.
30 seconds, that would totally take away that problem. You see it throughout.
Another thing, I'd also offer to meet with any, and I defer to the chair, but any school committee member who wanted to, and I don't know if this is in our subcommittees, maybe I'm not thinking straight on this, but the Quest Police, certainly Detective Lieutenant Lopes and Officer Taylor will be glad to meet with us, meaning
Yeah.
you, anybody to talk over some of these things.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to misspeak in characterizing what they said, except just to say that there were some limitations on what they could do with that intersection. Because I specifically brought it up because you had, and they
We got
were.
a lot of kids crossing that street.
I know.
And, again, bringing up Hingham, you go to some of their lights, they're well lit, they light up.
Yep.
They're neon.
It's a tricky spot.
That's a tricky spot, so.
It is, and I
we
ran
have a
into
lot of
this,
kids crossing right there.
and I was the principal formerly of the school that's directly across from Roach Brothers in Marshfield.
Oh, yeah.
Same problem.
Yeah.
It's a state road, and I wanted, as a principal, my kids were going across the street during early day to Roach Brothers and Fitzy's,
Right.
and I literally was out there, and it was dangerous for me to be out there because I didn't really have the right to direct them so it was tricky stuff, and it was really hard because the police were somewhat limited in what they could do because it was a state road. There's some
We need to
tricks.
take a lead on that, if you guys don't mind.
So,
Dave.
Mr. Kearney, I think this might be one where maybe you and I can
Okay.
take this up with maybe either the select board or talk to the police. It's not necessarily a school committee function per se, but the school committee can represent that this is something that could impact indirectly our schools. We can't do anything about it, but we can certainly push to see if other aspects of the town have jurisdiction over that can do something. I also think there's some element of they can't put lights unless they put bike paths. There's a state law to that effect. I've heard that before, so we'll see what the limitations are.
Yeah, they had better answers than I can give you. Yeah. But just know we are talking, and we did have a detail, and we do have a detail for the rest of the week.
Which is great, I noticed that.
You notice that we are
It just seems
conscious.
like he's got a lot more authority, it seems like, because honestly,
Chief
not
Cricket.
no, just a police officer
Oh, yeah.
versus
Yeah.
crossing guard. It's just, I've seen that poor crossing guard go through trucks, just go like they don't have to stop, like just.
Well, the police can direct traffic. I don't believe the crossing guard really can.
Yeah,
Stay in
okay.
the front
Well,
of
I'm
it.
just saying, I
Look,
think a lot
very
of
fun.
nonsense wouldn't be tolerated if there's a police officer.
Yes, no, I understand. And I want to thank them for the help they've given us so far. It's made for a very smooth start.
Moves well within there.
Mr. McCullen, any comments?
No.
No. Ms. Sandwich?
Excellent work on that, thank you.
Great, thank you. Yes, we're all happy to know that your summer of safety went off, and we had, it looks like we've done a lot of good work there. Some, as Mr. Kearney noted, still to come on our end, but thank you very much. Feel good that you're paying attention to that.
And I should also mention, we did have a very nice Assistant Superintendent Coffin, where we met with several parents, and I was able to get back to some of them on their questions, and it was nice. And the next one we will have a virtual component so people can write in as well. So we'll do that maybe end of November, beginning of October. Right.
Dr.
So
Sullivan, does that conclude school updates?
it does not, just one more thing, and then I promise that will conclude it, if that's okay.
That is okay.
I wanted to just have Dr. Scollins, and you don't have to go through all of them, but
But sure.
just to let them know some of the trainings that our staff are
Oh.
doing.
Yeah.
Right there.
So we're required to do some annual trainings with all of our staff, that's everyone, that's not just professional staff of teachers, ESPs, but our custodians, our cafeteria workers, our bus drivers. So I worked with Barbara Solanka, and so they need to have trainings in civil rights, confidentiality, and lots of, accommodations like before. So there's definitely things that they need to know about. So we've created a presentation for them that they go through. They have to, complete that by the end of September. All staff have to sign off on it. But there's more on civil rights, just so that they're aware of like McKinney-Vento, foster care. Everyone must do a mandated reporting of child abuse or neglect. So we have an actual training that we have embedded in here through Vector Solutions. We bought a library from them on professional development, has amazing videos that are very accessible. And then special education, they need to know the laws and regulations and what is faith, appropriate, right, education. Then,
Restrictive environment,
Yeah.
IEPs and 504s, the differences between accommodations and modifications. So all of those things are in there.
for them as well. And in conjunction, we have cyber safety training that everyone must participate in also. And we also have some nurse training, which I think is on the next slide. The annual health training that happens from all the nurses. And then, like I said, the mandated reporter training. What we did this year was it's all encompassed into this one presentation. And then Lisa Radden helped us link everything so that it's kind of a one-stop shop for everyone, which made it easier so that they understand what they need to complete. And the nice thing about using the Vector Solutions is that we can keep track of it, and then we can send reminders out if they haven't done it and things like that. So I think it's going to be really effective. This is our first experience using it, and very user-friendly so far. So
Yeah,
there's a little quiz with it, and so it really allows people to get the trainings they need. So I'm pretty happy with it.
Can I ask a quick training question?
You may.
Just very short. This year for my job, which we always have to do the same ones, our superintendent, assistant superintendent released those like 2 weeks before school started. I did not do them early, but a lot of people appreciated the early access to those.
Right.
Just if people want to use their end of summer in that way, I go camping, other people do
It's a-
trainings,
it's a
whatever,
good
but like,
Yeah.
but it's just nice to have it available
Yeah.
so that there's that flexibility, because then when school starts, it's like, when do I have time to do this?
And we do give them time, that's part of
Of
the
course.
course too, that we build in time for them in those first couple of days.
Mhm.
And they have till the end of the time, and sometimes the principals will give them some, but I think
Just
giving
nice
it
to have them a
beforehand
little
is
early.
nice, because some people do want it and
Uh-huh.
have it done, absolutely, so that's a
Yeah,
great
just a
suggestion.
it's a great suggestion. It's a good idea.
So we'll just open the floor. Any questions or comments from school committee members on trainings, required staff training over the course of the year?
In the category training, I want to commend you, the police came through recently and I thought that was great. They-
Right, they did the Alice training for
Yeah,
us, which
just-
is wonderful,
Terrific.
yeah, they did a nice
I
job.
hope they never have to come back.
Are you referring to the training they did here?
Yeah,
Yes.
that was great.
Oh, the regional
Yes.
training, yes.
So they did a regional training, the Cohasset Place with their TAC team, which is a response team made up of several communities in the area where they support each other in the event of a real emergency. One of the things I liked is that they're spending time and going to all the districts in this TAC team. They're going into the different buildings, because then if they have to respond to the building, they'll know the building. And as you've indicated, the support for, I volunteered in Cohasset for any future trainings they're going to do. They're going to do some sort of roundtable, a tabletop training exercise, and I believe they're going to use Cohasset high school, middle school. So it's just nice and should be comforting folks to know that if there was a situation, and we'll do the same with the elementaries, that not only do our police know the buildings, but police from neighboring towns do as well.
And I might add, they've gone to other communities and our people know those schools
Same thing.
as well.
Yeah.
It's very important, so.
It's really good. And the training we had on Alice, part of it was them showing our staff that they're doing this, so that our staff understands not only will, if there was an emergency, would our police force be responding, but the local police forces would be responding depending on need and also no buildings. Very good.
All right. I think that might conclude the school updates. All right, great. Thank you very much, Dr. Sullivan and team. And so now we'll move on to our next criteria that you called it the core of what we do here, teaching and learning.
That's right.
So I think we've got some elements under there, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Scollins.
And we did hit some of
We
it.
did,
So
we
you will
actually,
shorten your presentation.
I know, so we did talk about the culturally responsive and inclusive teaching training, that was in Dr. report. And that will be continuing throughout the year. And I talked about elementary literacy and what was happening there. Actually, I think I did all of this, actually. Middle school science, we talked about that. And it was really fun actually today because we were at the middle school and we hit two classes for science. And they were absolutely doing Open Science, and it was really exciting to see it. Very engaging for students, very engaging for teachers, and it's a phenomenon based and it's inquiry. So they're not getting the answers, they have to find them. So it's really nice. And I kudos to the teachers because it is, it's not like opening a book and turning the page. There's a lot of work to be done, but they really believe in the pedagogy behind it and really empowering students to be learners themselves. And so I think that was wonderful. And then we did talk about the high school and their work with the Ask, and then the vision of the graduate, which I know we had shared before. But this piece is the final graphic, and then where it came, we looked at inspiring character for C, as you can see, P for purposeful growth, and C for scholarship serving the greater good, so CPS. And this was the work done by the NEAS team over the summer under Principal Scott. And then we had it, we sent it over to, actually the person who did our strategic plan, so if you notice it might look a little familiar. She does really nice work, but I think it really encompasses not just our students at the high school level, but really where we want all our students to be. It's a little bit of a backward planning, right? This is where we want them to end up, and what are we going to do along the way, starting preschool or prior, to make sure that our students are on that path to success. So I think the NEAS review process, I know Dr. Sullivan said is very intense and very thorough. It really is, and it ties into all the things that we are doing. From our strategic plan too, everything dovetails so nicely that allows us to be continuing a forward movement in an efficient manner. So
I love these three
yes.
facets because it really, if you think about our vision, which is empowering students to improve communities, what's implicit in that are these three attributes. And it's why I think it's a nice vision for Cohasset students, because you do need that scholarship. You do need to be able to research, to look at data, to analyze, to think critically, all those skills that create student agency. That's what we're teaching them. You know, the ability to think creatively, to problem solve, and to use it for the greater good. And if you do that, you know, everything that you put forth is inspired by character and is there to make sure you have a growth mindset. You're gonna do not only great things for yourself, but you're gonna do great things for those around you.
And I think it also dovetails with really the process. You already mentioned it earlier. If you look at, you know, that scholarship serving the greater good, it talks about employing self-discipline, open-minded, patient, resilient approach to learning. It's not getting the answer like this sometimes. It's really about perseverance. It's really about the processes, how you got to that point, or how you went through the process to learn what you learned. And often that's actually failure is really sometimes the most powerful teaching tool, because you have to figure out why it didn't work as well and why it didn't work the way you thought. So I think that teaches you real life skills, which is what we want for our students, because we don't want them to give up. We want them to just keep trying. And that's the most important part.
It is. And watching our students and staff work together with those components is incredibly inspiring. And it's really powerful. I mean, our students are truly taking skills from here that they'll apply in ways that will make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
So I'm very proud of that. Anyway, that's that.
Yes, and then Find Your Compass, of course. And a little plug, the PSO made some nice stickers. I gave some out
Thank you.
tonight. But yeah, they did some really nice stickers they were giving them out to all the students and the staff, so, with the logos on it.
And we're seeing this all over the place. Like everyone is referencing the email. It's nice. Very good finding.
So, so I'm not one to belabor an agenda, but I do think this is really important. And there was some conversation at our last meeting regarding some curriculum. We went back and forth. There were several public comments. And what I digested and understood is we've made some changes, and now we're in the first day of school. I'm just curious if there's any updates as to how that's being implemented, any teacher reactions, it probably takes a lot longer than 2 days to really understand how a curriculum is working, but
So I'm assuming
curious.
you're talking about literacy.
yes,
Yeah, elementary literacy.
yes.
Yeah. So it is the very beginning. So, but I would say the teachers are very excited about it, and they are happy with having the embedded professional development. That really allows them to try it on and get immediate feedback on how they're doing and how it's being implemented. It's interesting too, because at the K2 level, we said that we would wait because we're doing Haggerty, and there was the units of study, which is the resource we're going to use for Reader's Workshop, wasn't going to be published until later. And so we decided to take a step back. But one of the things we did offer when we met with teachers on the first day, we went over to Osgood with our consultant and said, if you would like to be an early adopter, we will have the resources. So if you would like to try it, let us know. I said, there's no pressure to do it, but if you want to do it, you absolutely can. And I said, I'll give you a week and a half or so to let us know. And within 36 hours, I had many teachers who would like to adopt it because they had been trained in Reader's Workshop, excuse me, some of the components. And they really want to just kind of continue forward with it. So, so that was very exciting. So still waiting. I don't make it next week. So, but that's really exciting. And I think they really want to be able to jump in. They see the real benefits around the fact that we've created this comprehensive literacy approach where we're looking at structured learning. So and the science of reading you hear about. I like structured learning to kind of give a little bit more form, but we have our phonics that's so important in the early years. We have our phonemic awareness, which we also will build out. And then we, of course, want our students to love reading and comprehending their vocabulary, to pull all those pieces together. And then 3 through 5, the same. We know that they need to make sure that we are teaching explicitly, and they really believe in the process. So, so we're excited about it. I'll come back with more as we really roll it out, but this is the very beginning stages of it.
And the other note is I want everyone to know that this is a process where we're going to be taking input, giving back, how things are going and listening. It's growth. Remember I talked about the difference between involvement and engagement. Engagement is really creating something with folks. So we definitely want to set up times where we can have conversations with families and make sure, and we'll do that through the year as we, do it through either superintendent copies or other formats where, we can hear how things are going as we progress, and we can make sure that they understand that this is a very comprehensive approach. We're really trying to do all of this, not just one narrow focus, to help every student.
And it's the first year, so, with Haggerty and then with implementing, the sorts of units of study and the Reader's Workshop. So that first year, just like anything, when we rolled out math or if we roll out new science curriculum, you don't necessarily see the benefits right away. It's not until years after where it's cumulative and teachers feel more comfortable with the delivery of the instruction. So, but I think that piece around that investment in the teachers and their pedagogy and giving them more strategies is the most valuable thing we do. And that's the thing about Open SciEd too at the middle school, very much about pedagogy, best practices of teaching.
Chairs, may I comment?
Yeah, I was actually going to open up to the floor. I just wanted to pull up the agenda.
Start in alphabetical
So that's the old way.
order. It is.
Are we with
Mr. Carr.
We are going to Mr. Carr.
Isn't he
Mr.
outside
Carr,
first?
yes.
Yield my time back.
All right, Mr. Kearney?
I love it. I love purposeful lives. I love empathy. I love citizenship. Like, this is just awesome.
And that's all to kudos of Principal Scott
And his team, yeah.
Right.
And it's gonna grow. You're gonna see, this is just the start here.
And Mr. McCall?
I just wanted to vocalize some concerns that I had about the rollout of the literacy curriculum and discussion we had. It's not the curriculum itself I necessarily have concerns with. There's some parents that took issue with the process we engaged in when we introduced this, and I think that their concerns are valid. I want to separate process from substance, right? So I think some parents or stakeholders may have felt that it was the wrong choice. That's not what my concern is. My concern is that we had, as a committee, developed a process through which we introduced impactful concepts to our stakeholders. And I think curricula is an impactful concept or change when you're talking about a school committee. So and what we I feel like we had established is that there's a process in which a particular concept would be introduced loosely, followed by more robust discussion at a meeting, and then some form of implementation, depending on what the circumstances were. And in the circumstance of curricula, I think that it would probably be appropriate also to have updates as you go along, which I think Dr. Scollins had indicated expressly that would happen. So that's good. But I do feel like that we failed as a board a bit by not providing a forum for a little bit more robust discussion about the curriculum. And I think it perhaps unfairly deprived Dr. Scollins of the opportunity to fully outline the basis for the decision-making process that you engaged in. Because I for one, obviously the school committee oversees the superintendent, and sort of as a I think a tangent to that, the assistant superintendent, so much as you help develop the curriculum. And so I have complete faith in the two of you, having worked with you. I think that you're very talented educators, and I think you're doing everything in the best interest of the kids. So we need to allow you to do your job. That's what we hired you to do. It's not on us to decide what curriculum is implemented, but it is on us to review the process through which major curricular shifts are considered. And I don't think we did that appropriately in this situation. And literacy is a major, to me, it's the foundation of all knowledge. So it's a really important thing. And I know it's been a hot topic in the district for some parents as well, but that's not really my issue. It's the fact that it was a very impactful topic, and we did not, I feel like, adhere to the process that we usually adhere to. So I felt very disappointed in us as a committee, and I wanted to concede some accountability there, but also, promise to our stakeholders that we'll be sure to, and it was always part of the process, maybe not as well as articulated as we should have made it, but we'll always be reviewing this, as Dr. Sullivan just explained. It's a process, right? So we're gonna make sure it's the right fit. And it's actually, it is, kind of an interesting approach, because you have sort of taken pieces of different, programs or products to apply them to what you think are the needs of our particular district, which is really cool. And I know that some people take issue with a particular product or a particular program, and that's fine. I mean, not everyone's going to be pleased, but let's just wait and see if the folks that we've placed in charge of our district have been able to find the right fit. And it may be an ongoing process where it's a problem solving, situation where we have to figure out, does this work, does it not? So I think people need to be patient. And I know that there is a level of urgency to it, because, we don't want anyone left behind. But I just wanted to express that thought, because it's important to me that everyone knows that that, you know, we will make sure that we provide a more robust forum for discussion among stakeholders about impactful topics. And I wanted to acknowledge those comments that were made to me from various families following the meeting. I think they were valid. So I just wanted to say that and suggest that we try to adhere to that more in the future. And certainly, Mr. Chair, I would ask that we certainly ask Dr. Scott, Dr. Sullivan for repeated updates as to the success of the curriculum, as you just did. But to your point, I don't think 2 days is going to give us too much of by way of data, but you know, perhaps, in a month or two or however, whatever you think is the appropriate time frame. I wouldn't know that. That's not my area. So thank you.
So before we go much further, I think that the substance of Mr. McCullen's comments really rests with me as the chair, as the person responsible for the agenda. And so, that is, I hear the point, and it's a good one, and we should make sure that we have these things on the agenda, and that I work with the administration to make sure that everyone's prepared to talk about that. So that is loud and clear. Understand we have feedback from the community on that, and I share that. Academics is very important, and I think we should spend a good amount of time on these discussions, and especially when we have the advantage of having a well-informed community that can offer feedback and suggestions and hear our process and thoughts, and given people come to the schools for this particular thing, it is very important. So I agree. This is something that we will make sure we keep to our traditional process going forward. To the extent there are significant changes, we'll work together to make sure they're on the agenda and you were prepared to speak.
To clarify that the point was not directed to the chair, and I respect your acceptance of the responsibility, but where we go one, we go all. And it's a committee, and I feel like there are 5 intelligent human beings here that are on this committee, and all of us sat through that meeting without thinking of the fact that maybe we didn't roll it out as I don't know, as comprehensive as we could have. So no blame. I'm accepting the committee.
It's no blame.
And the best thing we can do is learn from it
That's right.
and adjust our ways.
And if a school committee can't learn, what are we doing? So any further comments, Ms. McCollum?
No, thank you. Sorry for the length.
No, Ms. St. Owens.
I thank you for bringing up those comments. I think it's a really important point. And I think it plays into our transparency that our community deserves and that we've been working on. So I think it makes sense. I also really like this vision of a graduate and our and how it just aligns with our strategic plan, right? It makes us look a little bit like a private school, and we're not, but it looks really nice. So like aesthetically,
I'm a public school fan, so that's not.
I am too, and I was raised in public school, and I love public school, but like, wow.
I get what you,
That's good.
I take it as a compliment.
And not every public school establishes like a brand and a look and a voice, and you guys are doing that, and I just think it looks really nice, and it shows that, and it gives us something to align to. I think it's a really nice vision, and I think that in a community this small, gives us a huge advantage. Like there are just not that many people here, but we can all do this. We can all work towards this, and everyone, kind of every single teacher has contact with each of our kids, so they can really align beautifully towards this, vision of a graduate. So I like it.
Thank you.
So coincidentally, Mrs. St. Andre, I think you embody this as a prior graduate yourself.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Every child can grow up and be on the school committee.
I'll be sure to share that with Principal Scott as well.
Yeah, no, it looks great.
Did the work.
Thank you, Ms. Owens. I have anything further? I have a couple of things. One, to just build off of the literacy discussion. I wanted to get that out there to make sure it was part of the agenda. And this is the logical extension of that. As we're moving forward, what sort of metrics or measurements are you looking at to determine the success or non-success of a program like this?
Right. Great question. So we spent time last year with the assessment team at the elementary looking at literacy. We also did math, and we also talked a little bit about science, but we did pull together our ELA group, and we looked at what kind of assessments we would be using, some of our benchmark assessments. We tightened those up. We made sure that we weren't duplicating and asking for the same information, so that, because sometimes you can assess too much and not spend enough time teaching. So we streamlined that. So we have kindergarten through 5th grade. We looked at what our benchmark assessments, certainly we have iReady, and that's kind of that benchmark that's K through 8. But we also have a variety of assessments that we're using. Correctly, DIBELS, we are using VRAs. There's some other assessments we're using to track our reading skills and our writing skills, right? To see where our kids fall in relation to the work we're doing. So we'll be able to drill down a bit on some of the data pieces, especially around some of those foundational skills. We really want to make sure that we're catching kids.
Yep.
And then we'll certainly be looking at our MCAS scores. They're one data point. Obviously, they don't start till 3rd grade. And our science is only isn't every year. So it's a little bit more challenging to use that data, but it's definitely data points to use. So those are some of the things that we'll be doing. And we're going to be working with the district around having more consistent conversations and processes around how do you look at data and how do you analyze data. It's happening, but I just don't think we just haven't done a comprehensive, consistent process.
Some of the data dialogue.
Exactly. And that was to Dr. Sullivan's point around Dr. Porch mentioning that and the importance of it, right? So you can't just say, I think it works. Well, we have to know, is it working? And making sure that we're looking at those pieces. So, so there'll be things for us to look at that I can bring forward.
And that, in essence, is the most, in many ways, the most culturally responsive thing you can do, is to make sure that you assess data and really look at everyone. And that tells you a story about who you're reaching.
Yep.
And the success or lack thereof of the program.
That's a great segue to my next question, just to first wrap that one up. So, Dr. Scollins, I don't think it's helpful for us to get downloads of data. Like, we don't know what that is. We don't know what it is. It's good to know that you have it, are assessing it and looking at these things. But I would ask that, one of the reasons that we put this new agenda item in for teaching and learning in the academic initiatives update is to have a space folder where you can come to us and give us progress of what you're seeing out of the data through the normal process, what's working, what's not working, so we can see that as we move forward. So, this item will be on the agenda. So, to the extent you have information and learnings on the academic side that you can share with us, we vastly welcome it.
Absolutely. I think if I may add to that.
Yes.
I think it would also be exciting, obviously later in the year, maybe after, in the new year, to have some of our highlight on learning, show us kids doing their little Haggerty routines or talking about the writing process or the readers. I think obviously give time. I think there would be nothing more stressful than to say to a teacher, we're going to have your percent in November, but in the new year, it would be great to see some of that in the process.
Oh, absolutely. And I'd love to have science in the middle school.
Yeah.
I think, we had, last year we had, Christy Bonet come in and specialist. So I think, I absolutely think, and I think it makes it real, which is a great suggestion. I was talking to Principal Farrell, we were talking about how do we make this accessible to families so that they can, what are we going to do so that, it's one thing when their children bring it home or the teacher sends something home, but how do we make it so that families can have experiences with it? So those are things we were talking about. So, thank you for all that.
And then the segue goes into, Dr. Sullivan, you mentioned it in particular, and Dr. Scollins, you had talked about the culture responsive learning. And you mentioned your impression from the speaker that culture responsive learning is just good teaching. And
It's more, but at the heart of it is good teaching. It really, what he talked about was good teaching. And that's the best thing you can do to capture, to make sure you're culturally responsive, is to really be explicit with your instruction, to build your relationships, to assess the data so that you're making sure you capture everything that you need to capture. It tells you a story about what you need to do and what you need to share. And then, of course, to be very purposeful with curriculum choices and the way you approach curricula as well. But that's not mischaracterizing what I said. I absolutely said at the heart of it is good teaching.
Well, actually, you said what I was trying to pull is just a little more detailed and can explain people what that means, because I think people seeing it might have a preconceived notion of what it would be. And
That's right.
it seems like it's a much broader actual concept than what people might.
It's a lot more fundamental.
One last well, actually two questions. I'm sorry for everyone, but the NEASC, we've referenced it a couple times.
Yeah.
But, and this may just be me, but what is it and why are we doing it?
So secondary schools and colleges, New England Association of Secondary Schools and Colleges. And it's a 10-year, it's an accreditation cycle. It's actually a 10-year cycle.
For your school,
And
you must
there-
have it.
Yeah, and there are certain stages that you get reviewed by this board. Every high school has to be accredited. And they look at your academic programming and also your facilities to ensure that you're providing what would be considered an accredited educational program for students in your district. And they look specifically at the high school. And there is actually, they do it in middle schools as well.
They do.
If we decided to do that at some point. There's a New England League of Middle Schools that does some process work, and it doesn't provide necessarily an accreditation, but yes, it does. So right now, I think,
We're in for phase one. So
Yeah.
kind of review and collecting of data. The one thing that's happened over the course of the past few years is they've actually streamlined the process. It used to be a massive process and you had to create all sorts of things. This is really, more of a, actually, they're actually using it more for the private school model.
Yeah.
Some private schools have similar, but it allows for us to really look at our curriculum and look at our practices through the lens of the high school, secondary, and college and career and all that kind of stuff. So it's a really nice reflective piece, and then it allows us to have where we want to grow, where we need to go. So it's a good process. This will be my first time actually doing it at the high school levels.
I'll actually show you, I can show you a little graph here that can kind of help you. This is sort of the.
How long does this cycle go from start to finish?
So I know the whole thing is
10 years, but I think it's 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
And there was a push, we're off cycle, I believe, by a year or so because of COVID. They pushed things back. Does that sound right? So the reflection, so we're in reflection
Yep, self-reflection process,
and then
review.
review and then renewal and ongoing. So
Yeah.
I feel like, and I wish I had it in front. 24, 25, is that our visit?
Will this be something that's going on for a period, like, will they be
Yes.
here for a period of months, for the entire year, I guess? is it-
Yes, it goes on all year this year, and then the following year,
Yeah,
23, 24, then there's visits, they come out.
what,
And
we
visit
could
us.
also have,
We have
there's a
principals
video
come.
I can show you too.
So
But
we don't need to do that now. In
Yeah,
fact, this seems like a
we can
more
do that.
fulsome conversation.
It does.
What I'd like to
Yeah.
do is, if we can, a future agenda item, talk about the NEAS process, what it means, why we're doing it, just for the community and myself, because it seems like there will be a lot. First, it seems like a very big deal. Like if you don't get it, then you're in trouble. Two, it seems like there's a lot of opportunities for improving the schools.
We
So
get Principal Scott come, he's done such
Yeah.
amazing work. So,
that'd be great.
Give you like, push it, you can see it here.
Yeah.
You can get to it.
and our assistant principal, Tara Noyes, she is on visiting team, so she goes to other schools. So
Great.
she's been on team to do that, so,
All right,
But we're on the self-assessment stage.
yes.
great. All right. Any other questions, comments from the committee? I think, Dr. Scollins, that conclude your portion of teaching and learning? I think now, Dr. Sullivan, we turn it over to Ms. Sawanka for our
Sure do.
special education update.
Yes,
Very well done. So it's been really a wonderful opening. It's been great to be welcoming students, new staff, returning staff. I've been out and about in all of the schools. I've been able to have full department meetings with everyone. And yeah, we've done a lot in just a couple of days and it's all been really good. So it's very exciting. Just a couple of things that I wanted to share that kind of harkens back to some of where we left off, talks a little bit about what we did this summer and what we're moving forward with. My letter to families for this year is kind of in the hands of tech and being uploaded up onto my website. It also talks about finding your compass and has the introduction to all of our staff and their roles and their titles at each of the schools. So that's really nice for families to be able to go onto the website and see. Dr. Scollins and I did a lot of partner work this summer with the principals. And one of the things was we kind of fully revisited MTSS again today, and all of you may have gotten it. The introductory letter to MTSS went out from my office explaining what it is and the different tiers and what it's going to look like. The principals have their letters to go out to families and their process and procedure to do that. So I can, I can talk to you about, those letters and what they entail, and that there are letters for each of those tiers. Since everyone is really in kind of tier 1 all of the time, when a letter goes out, it's going to be to introduce that a child has been brought to the MTSS team to go into a tier 2 intervention and really explain all of that. Those are building-based letters. They explain exactly what is going on, what are the areas that the student is being looked at, what are some of the interventions that are being tried, when can the parent look forward to hearing from people again. A similar tier 3 letter, and those are in the hands of the principals at the building-based level. They will be signed by them and go out like that. So that kind of addresses some of what we talked about in terms of our improving communication and knowing, when students are being brought to MTSS teams and when they're receiving those interventions. So that was some really nice work this summer, and we're really looking forward to that. Dr. Scollins and I also did some work around not just data, but also the keeping of those records and really clarifying what do student records look like, what do they need to look like, and having them moving forward, what is that consistency, and did some nice work this summer with the principals around that. So that's really exciting. One of the other things I know we talked about a lot at the end of last year was the reading evaluation we had done. And I know we had talked about adding in a specialized reading teacher at the Deer Hill School, which we moved ahead and did. One of the other recommendations that came out of that reading evaluation was something that the district was not doing, which was IEPs were being signed by the team chairs and myself, but not the building principals. And this year, we worked out a system where we can stay within our timelines for IEPs to go out, but also have the building principals sign all of those IEPs. And one of the last school committee meetings of last year, we had some families here talking about who do they go to and who really knows their children when their children are on IEPs. And, do they go to their building principal? Do they go to their liaison? Do they go to the team chair? Do they come to me? And by making principals have the ability to sign those IEPs really dovetails them fully into that process. And because I work so closely and so hand in glove with them, it was just a wonderful, wonderful thing to be able to do and to bring to the principals. And they were so excited and open about having this as part of them embedded into the IEP process in that way. So that's going to be a really great addition that I'm happy to share that we are doing. And, we continue to look at ourselves and our practices and how we can continue to grow. And this is just another example of us looking at that self-evaluation that we asked for, independently have done, and really add into it and continue to improve. Another new thing that came out this summer was, I know we talked about extended school year toward the end of last year, and those students for whom we measure their regression and recoupment time all year long in terms of their skills and make determinations around who we really need to recommend to participate in the special education extended school year program. At the end of that program this year, all of our providers wrote letters, which are on my desk right now, and I reviewed all of them, in terms of the students, their attendance and participation in ESY, and the skills they worked on to prevent that regression and recoupment to a marked degree. And those letters will go out to families of the students who participated in them to say, you know, here was your student attendance, here are the things that they worked on. It was a pleasure working with them this summer. And we're looking forward to a good start of the school year with them, having had that experience, you know, this summer. So that's a really great thing to be able to add into kind of our mix with students. I did some work this summer on kind of presenting my data to you in new ways. I have a new slideshow to share data with you. I worked today on some of our percentages and looking at, you know, our opening with our active IEPs and who's on board and things like that. So next month when I meet with you and I'm able to show you kind of our September numbers, it's going to be in a new format that I think is going to be easier and more digestible and readable and all of those really good things. So I was excited to be able to put that together with my team chairs over the summer. And I'll look forward to your reaction to those new data slides. And the last piece that I really wanted to speak to today in the hopes that people who are, you know, the attendees and whether it be through this or through Facebook are able to hear. One of the opening slides showed Tara Belungus and myself at the CPAC table at the ice cream social. We really don't have a CPAC leadership team yet, and we really would like to reach out to families, new families, young families, families who are experienced and have been with us for a long time in terms of special education, and ask for their participation, perhaps in a leadership way for our CPAC for this year. Tara Belungus and I are talking about perhaps not starting off this September with our basic rights as we usually do, but maybe starting off with a coffee to invite people in and kind of build up some participation in CPAC as parents, and hopefully some people as taking leadership roles, and then move forward with that. But all of that's, you know, really great opening stuff. Very happy to open the school year and be in this first school committee meeting with you, and happy to entertain any comments or questions.
Thank you, Ms. Wonka. Mr. Carr, any comments, questions?
Terrific. Wonderful.
Mr. Kearney?
Absolutely. I just think we'll just keep moving the fence post, the goalpost.
Mhm.
And I see that with every aspect of the school system, including department. And I think I've been on the board for the last 4 years. I've seen such a big difference in communication with the families, and you know, and I do want to stress Barbara's point about, you know, if anybody's listening out there, to try to get involved, because we could use you. We could use your voice, and it goes a long way. I mean, you know, and I would speak to some of the people that don't think that we need you, but we do. So, you know, if anybody wants to help out, or you know, you can give a lot of time or a little time,
Right.
And, you know, just paying attention and you know, giving people the ability to let them know that there's people listening, right? I mean, we're all part of this. This big part of our school district is special needs. And we're all, and I got to say, I'm really proud of this committee for all it's done to advance that goal. I speak to the chair and the co-chair of all the leadership that they've done. How much I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney. Mr. McCollum?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Wonka, I had a question about the concept of having the principals sign off on the IEPs.
Yes.
What is the desired outcome of that? Is it an added layer of review and perhaps increased accountability and oversight? Is that what do we hope to gain from that? I wasn't understanding why.
So it's not so much accountability and oversight, because that really comes through the team chair and through myself. Before IEPs leave the district, they would still cross my desk and get my signature before they leave. What it really is just that whole child environment, that we are all responsible for all of our students, and that, you know, all of our students are embraced and learn from everyone in a school, and for the principal to be able to have that IEP on their desk, see the new updates and the new things and the progress of the students and where they're going to continue to grow and to go, and sign off on that as those students, you know, part of their schools, I think is a really important message.
So increased collaboration and teamwork. overall.
Exactly. And I know, you know, Dr. Stalin certainly can speak to having, a former principal having signed IEPs and whatever to her.
Right, exactly. It was an integral part of what I did, and I considered myself the local LEA, right?
Yes.
So it was just how the district did it. But for me, it made sure that I knew every student, what their needs were, what the expectations were for them, what were their goals, and allowed us to have some really good conversations around, you know, even programming within the district. I mean, within the district, but also within the schools, right? So, and making sure that I had just a really good picture. You know, I happened to come from a building that had multiple programs in it. So around special needs in the preschool program, and students with autism, language-based program. So there are multiple programs that were there. And to Sawaka's point, all of our students are all of our students, no matter whether they're a child on an IEP, have a 504, or do not have any of those needs. So
So it helps promote a more cohesive building approach to the individualized education planning process.
it doesn't, it brings it all together versus if you have, you know, silos. We don't want silos.
So really keep your finger on the pulse of
Absolutely.
your staffing, like what is the caseload? You know, one special ed teacher's caseload can vary so greatly. Do you have enough people?
Okay,
Everyone
that's,
jump
okay,
right,
that's
that makes a
interesting
big
too. Yeah, all right,
difference.
okay, all right.
And we're
okay,
small,
so
and we're so small that, you know, you can, this system was working. It wasn't that it wasn't working, but, you know, in a large school district, you could never have the director who was responsible for signing on the holiday. It wouldn't work. But I think this is a good practice for us to just really build that cohesiveness, and it just makes the school stronger. Just right, the more opportunities we collaborate, the more opportunities
Sure.
we're sharing
To
information.
Mrs. St. Andrew's point, it might actually help us identify needs for resources.
Absolutely.
Throughout special education and student services department, so it's good. And then the last thing I have is not a question, just a point. It'll reflect a bit of the security's thoughts, but it's distressing to hear that we don't have leadership on CPAC. And I'm not certainly not trying to indict anyone that is a participant of CPAC for not stepping up and taking. I'm overall or just basically concerned about the state of the current level of interest in the volunteer positions concerning school governance and you know, involvement. The last election cycle, where very thankfully Mr. Carr was able to step up and essentially volunteer to fill Mrs. Cleary's spot, and enabling this committee to have 5 members. It was that's concerning to me, and I think that this is sort of a symptom of the same problem. We have a lot that's going to be happening with the schools as we further implement the strategic plan. There's some talk about serious facilities considerations. We have, leadership team that is basically, in my opinion, just now being let out of the gates following the pandemic. There's a lot happening, and someone pointed out in the student services forum that this district's only as strong as its weakest student from a learning perspective, right? So student services, special education, especially, is an extremely important facet of what we do. And that group, I feel so strongly about, because I just started to involve myself with that last year as chairperson coming out of the pandemic, and you know, considering how detrimental the pandemic was for individuals with learning differences. And so I started getting involved more with that group, and I can't tell you like how many like constructive thoughts come out of that and how much we can improve our district. That group is so important. And I really urge anyone that's listening to this or might watch this recording at some point and, you know, just to, you know, I'm hoping there are more attendees on Facebook, which I think is the medium most people use, because I know there aren't a lot of attendees on Zoom, but I would really encourage you, if you're a special education parent, to try and attend a few meetings if you haven't, and see what it's all about, and see if you might want to take the reins a little bit there, because I think the group can be really helpful just from a support perspective as well. But it can really lead to some constructive discourse that can better our district. So it's distressing to me to hear that we don't have leadership, because to me, that is demonstrative of the general lack of willingness to get to dedicate some time to our school district. And I know we have a lot of really intelligent, really caring, really involved parents out there and people, and there are a lot of different ways to participate and get involved. But this is one of them. And I just really want to, but it's scary when we don't have someone running for a school committee position. It's scary to me when we don't have, you know, people that are, you know, sort of established leadership members of a CPAC group. So I just sort of wanted to reiterate what Mr. Kearney says. I don't like reiterating things during these meetings, but I think this is something that I wanted to point out. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. St. Ange?
Thank you. I have a question about the MTSS letters. So obviously, tier 1 letter went out. I received that. After benchmark assessments are done at the beginning of the year, first rounds of tier 2 letters will go out, correct?
Well, I mean, they could, certainly. Remember that MTSS is kind of an ongoing process, so it really starts around mid-October in schools, once, you know, students have kind of acclimated and gotten going. And then students will be brought to MTSS teams as individuals, as teachers have concerns. Certainly, the benchmark assessments are going to be one factor in the concerns that may bring them to MTSS, but it wouldn't be the only or factor.
Okay, so I guess I'm confused, and perhaps it differs from how I do things. So like after I do benchmark assessments, and then I have a list of kids who are not on an IEP but need reading services, and I begin to deliver those services, a letter goes home to families.
Yes.
Is that not the same as a tier 2 letter?
No, I believe that it is the same.
Okay.
I guess I was just saying that there are, you know, there are more things than just the benchmark assessment that would drive a child to come to an MTSS tier 2 kind of an intervention. You know, we're looking at, you know, their history, because we have a long history. Have they visited MTSS before? Are there classroom concerns? What are some of their social, emotional, and behavioral presentations?
What kind of
as well
supports
as-
they're currently receiving?
Okay,
So they
As
get
well
reading
as their
support
benchmark
without going
assessments.
through TSS, is that correct?
that's what I'm asking. So are children
would
getting
still-
reading and math intervention support, small group support, without communication to their families?
No,
So what communication is that?
That's coming from their principals. So the reading specialist will say, you know, I'm going to work with your child on. such and
Okay,
such.
and is there like a set letter, a set something? If there's not, I feel like there should be,
Yeah.
because I think there needs to be uniformity to that process.
Set letter for a tier 2?
So like,
so there is a set letter for a tier 2 intervention.
I understand that.
But I guess you're saying outside of that, if a child is being seen by a reading or math specialist, what does that communication look
Correct.
like? Yeah, and I think that that's some of the work that we are doing this year. Now that we've done this MTSS kind of letter work, and we had our steering committee last year, that committee is continuing to do the MTSS work this year.
Mhm.
But in addition to that, for example, I know that like our reading specialists, along with our special education reading providers, are forming a little group to talk this year around, you know, what does this reading look like in the district? What do I do? What do you do? How do we tease this out and differ this out? And how do each of us communicate these things? And some of that is going to be, I think, some of the process that Dr. Stallings was talking about before.
Right, so we'll meet with the reading, we meet monthly, reading specialists, math specialists, and then even reading math come together. So we're gonna dovetail that all in there. Because I think to your point,
yeah,
want to make sure that it is consistent,
yes.
right, and how it's coming out, because
that's one of the things we found, was that there was inconsistency.
Yeah.
So those are all the pieces that we're trying to pull together.
I know
Just
that
to your point,
these
yes.
letters, they can be a little bit of a template for some of those
Yeah.
Sure,
letters.
yeah, and I think it's very important that it's a template, and then
Mhm.
you're obviously personalizing it to the situation of that child, but I think professionally and personally, I think it's totally inappropriate to be pulling a child without their family knowing.
That's
Right.
And I don't think that's
It
happening.
shouldn't be,
Right.
but it does frequently. I've heard it from many friends, it's happened to me. It's happening, and it shouldn't be,
Well, one of the things
right?
we're
So
trying to do
it,
is,
that can be fixed very
Yeah.
easily,
Yeah.
yeah.
we want to make sure that, that families are made aware of data.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
gathered on their child.
Yeah.
And then before anything is done.
Right.
To help that student, whether it's through an MTSS team, or it's through a reading specialist or math specialist, or, quite frankly, psychologist,
Right.
or
Right, there's many
school
kinds of
just
intervention.
counselor, or anybody,
Yeah.
Right.
that there's
Specialist
communication there.
Right.
In your thought about a set letter for it, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I think it's something, but we should, just because we don't have the letter, doesn't mean that communication should.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I
Totally.
think that just like, and I'd be willing to talk about it more outside of this meeting, but I just think that like, you know, just like you have a protocol for if there's a bus crash, there should be a protocol for if someone is going to be like pulled for any type of intervention, that needs to
That's the
just boom,
complete spirit
quick
of what we're
email,
trying to do.
go home, right? And just let's
Absolutely.
get it set up and put it in place.
Yep.
And I think that will relieve a lot of angst coming from the community. Just tell me what's happening with my kid, right? Like they get off the bus or walk home and they're like, what happened? No,
Nothing.
okay. I didn't know that you just went and reviewed, you know, segmenting words with the reading specialist until 3 weeks later when someone's like, wow, they're really making progress in segmenting words. Okay, why?
Why?
Right?
What do you
So
mean?
that needs to be
Yeah, we're trying to
proactively
pull it out.
communicated. Another question is, separate from that. With ESY, is progress monitoring done during the summer?
So ESY really isn't a progress monitoring place. because
Okay.
ESY is to maintain skills, so that students do not regress to a degree to which their recoupment time is more so than their peers. So what we're trying to do is we're working on those current skills and we're maintaining those skills all through the summer, because without that, those skills regress to a degree to which they would have too much, you know, back work to do when it came back in September.
We'll be looking at iReady and all that data. We'll be, so that, those are some of those points when we're drilling down on data and looking at subgroups.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah, I guess I would just think if you're trying to maintain, how do you know it's been maintained if you don't monitor progress? So that's just a question I have.
Right, I guess progress is, is the word that.
Well, I think
threw me off
progress
a little bit
monitoring,
because they're
progress
not-
monitoring is the material, like that's
But
just.
that's kind of, you know, the point of that letter this year, which didn't exist before, is that what do we work on with your child? What, you know, where were we in kind of our materials?
Mhm.
What did they do?
Mhm.
And how did they, you know, respond to this? Why?
Okay,
And the hope is that we don't see we see less regression
Yes.
okay.
when we look at their data in the
Yeah.
fall.
I just didn't know if that was looked at end of ESY and then also as a part of the whole group in the fall.
Yes, because when those letters go home to parents, but those letters also go in the child's files so
Okay.
that the receiving teacher can see where were they at the end of the year when they did that progress report in June? And then what does the ESY letter say that they worked on and so on and so forth? And then where do I see them?
Okay. And then my final question for you. With the CPAC meeting, when you're talking about, when you and Tara are saying that kind of, okay, there's no leadership and you're inviting the group, are you going to give an opportunity to kind of the people who show up to define the buckets of interest, like where they want the focus to be this year? So like when we had our special ed forum, there were very specific areas that kind of popped up. And I'm just wondering if that group kind of like norms are set and intentions are set, if that would increase participation, if they're kind of a part of kind of the pacing of the year, of thinking like, who do we want for speakers? What do we want to be learning? What will be most helpful to us?
Yes, and I defer to
Okay,
the president on that. That was, you know, for Tara to do last year. And
Yeah.
certainly, yeah, that was what they looked at
Mhm.
when they tried to engage with speakers and things like that. You
Yeah.
know, what are some of kind of like the high interest areas for us this year? And then with whom do we want to engage? And I've partnered with some towns on some speakers of interest and things like that.
Thank you, Mr. Yonchik. I will say that Mr. McClellan commented to me just a moment ago, and I wholeheartedly agree enough to raise it. It's so wonderful having a teacher on the committee. So thank you for your participation. I do want to just laser focus on one point because I think it's of critical importance, and I know, Ms. Yonchik, you were focusing on as well. But just, I often said I'm a process person. Just from a process, you have students in a classroom. Just being in a classroom, you're tier 1, right? TSS.
Everyone is entitled to tier 1 supports and services, yes.
Okay, so that, but if are you entitled to services, or you're getting tier 1?
You're getting.
Okay, so tier 1s are big core academic stuff, and then if you need the teacher to come over and spend a little more time on your desk, then that's tier 1, right?
Yep.
Then there's tier 2, and getting into tier 2, someone somewhere makes a decision, right? I guess who makes that decision? Is that student services? Is that?
No, it would go through, it's very building based. It would
Yep.
go from the classroom teacher to bring it to the MTSS team and
Okay.
say, here's what I'm seeing with this student. Here's what I'm noticing that I'm needing to do that rises above and beyond the tier 1 supports that everyone gets in order for this student to make progress.
And here's what I'm trying to understand.
Exactly.
That's an important distinction because we do want our staff to have reached out to families before the student gets to MTSS. I mean, this should be, I've tried everything in tier 1 and I'm still seeing, and you should be able to list them. I've done this, I've done this. And here's some things that I'm still not getting, or your child is still not getting the support that I feel that they need. So I'm going to refer to the MTSS team. It's basically like, I need more heads together here, including the families, to get to the bottom of what we can do.
That'd be great.
Mhm.
So the
What'd you say?
That'd be great.
That's what we're doing.
That is-
So the MTSS.
That's the point. That's what we're,
That's
that's,
not the sense I'm getting from listening to St.
well, no.
I skipped over.
That's our approach.
Sorry, I'm just,
I understand
Hijack.
I understand the question, but this is our approach.
So-
This is what we're trying to get going. in the
So
district.
we have someone, teacher go to an MTSS team, and that MTSS team makes a decision, yeah, this is now, someone somewhere, no, Mark, I don't know, if Mark's, but this is a tier 2 now, right? Is that the MTSS team who makes that decision? And then things happen, a note goes to parents, letting them know, hey, your child, your student is now MTSS tier 2, here's the scenario, right? Okay. In between that, and this is what Ms. St. Ange was getting to, I think where you were going, Mr. Long. There are your core tier 1 things, and then there's some additional things, pulling out of school for reading specialists, other things. I guess what I really think is important, and what Ms. Ange is saying, is someone, or maybe it's the classroom teacher, maybe it's, I don't know who it is, but is it let's just assume it's classroom teacher. Classroom teacher decides, student Lance needs a little more work. I'm going to bring in the reading specialist and he'll, go there. And that's where we want to make sure there's communication, because I can see how that might be a fluid determination, but you're trying to determine.
That would be a tier 2.
That would be tier 2.
That would.
Okay.
So that would be kind of like, it would not, certainly we would not wait to provide, but there are weekly MTSS meetings, and these MTSS meetings, all of this work isn't new. Some of these letters and the standardization of the practice is new, but the practice has been going on. I can't emphasize enough
Because we
what a
don't
wonderful
want-
job that the principals do and
Yeah.
have always done with MTSS and
That's
child,
right.
they used to call them child study teams and things like that. But that support, whether it be this child needs to be pulled, this child should receive some small group services, this child should receive some push-in service support, this child should receive this kind of support. Those are the tier 2 supports.
Okay.
So that teacher
So
brings
I-
that child to MTSS and that tier 2
that-
support is identified and a letter goes home to the family to tell
that
them
won't
that,
happen
and that
until-
starts happening.
That won't happen until you have this meeting with the MTSS team.
Right.
So
Now-
just a moment ago, that we had a conversation where Ms. Ange gave the example of my student coming home and saying I got pulled out to a reading specialist.
So So it
So
could,
there is some reading support that can happen outside and separate from MTSS for different
Yeah,
reasons.
so
that
let's
Dr.
say-
Scollins can describe
right,
better
so
than
let's say
I
we look
can.
at our fall assessments and we say, you know what, here's a small group of students in this particular class. We notice that they all need, they need work on civils, let's just say.
Yes.
There should be notification though to the families that say, for the next 4 weeks, or 6 weeks, I'm gonna grab your child, or I'm gonna be in the classroom, whatever that is, that says I'm gonna give this intervention. It's not, it hasn't really it hasn't risen to the level of an MTSS yet, in the sense that, it's the beginning, it could be the beginning stages.
It's also
Yes.
about intensity.
Right.
I always think of
Yes.
the
Yes.
tiers, it's really easy for me to process it in terms of intensity, and the intensity of the intervention. Tier one is not an intense intervention, it's good teaching practices
Right.
that help everyone in a classroom. You can switch that, like for instance, the way, you help a student in your class organize themselves, process certain things. That's not necessarily a tier two intervention. You're just adapting to help a kid with a system that might work better for them. When you get to MTSS though, the teachers tried all that. And some of that may be, we're gonna, just kind of have some silver work here. I'm gonna let your family know that we're gonna do that. It's still not working. Now we need to really dive deeper and get some more intense supports. And those intense supports need to be timed and tracked. And we need to dipstick and see how it's going. And then at the end of a certain period, report what we've done. It's improving, or we're gonna try A, B, and C, or if it's not improving, we need to get more intense. Then you get more intense with the intervention. So I just want to make sure you understand, like, when we really are talking a dive into the tiers, it's really about intensity.
It is.
And-
And the other piece to it that's important is that some of these kinds of interventions that Dr. Scollins talked about, perhaps there's like this small group of kids that you notice and, okay, let's do a little bit of work here, before it gets to kind of like a tier two intervention with some of these kids. Absolutely, the letter should go up. But even in, in the very young grades, in like kindergarten, sometimes my occupational therapists will go into classrooms and just kind of watch kids as they're learning to write and they're handling, different implements and utensils and materials, and do a little bit of work with the whole group, or sometimes with like little small groups, because it's just kind of like, this is all so new, it's also unfamiliar. There's a little bit of a bubble or a bump here where kids need a little bit of support, but it's not too like, and this child isn't responding to this and needs to come to MTSS. It's just kind of like, really good practices to get kids to be good students.
And we're all work together to support one another.
Yeah.
So what,
And the families want to work together, and so they need to be in the
Exactly,
loop,
and they
and they
need
need
to
to be
know
given some
that.
tips. We're working on our grip. You can hold a little
Yes.
eraser over your finger so that you hold with 3 fingers. We're working on segmenting words. You can tap it out. Here are the foundations materials that come home at the beginning of the month. They have to be pointed out so that we can support at home. That's what it's.
Yeah.
that's the gap I'm hearing. It seems like there might be a gap. Maybe there's not, but I just want to make sure that we have a process for when, and I understand that there's things teachers will do just for good education, the understanding that, I need to explain this a little bit different, Lance, because he's not having the same receptivity. That's fine. But when students identified as needing, special help, writing segmenting words, I want to make sure that in those cases, we are communicating with families.
I actually think in the first example you gave, we should be communicating that to families. If I'm a teacher and I'm seeing a kid that's really having trouble with organization and I've changed, I've said, look, we're doing it this way, he's not getting it. I'm gonna try this with him. Like for a while, I'm gonna have him come up and I'm gonna check his work just for a while,
Yep.
and I'm gonna gradually release that. If I'm a teacher, I'm calling you.
Yep.
And that would be the expectation that those teachers are calling you. I might not be sending you a form letter, but I'm gonna call you and say, hey, listen, your son is not doing this and I wanna help him. I'm gonna try this. I just want you to know because, hopefully you see some improvements in what I see is some possible challenges with the way he's remaining organized in my class. Typically the parents say, yeah, I see that at home too. Let's try it.
But if a child's ever leaving the classroom, let him use it.
Okay, so let's just use that as an objective. If the child's leaving the classroom, letter needs to go home. Can we have a control around that to make sure that happens every time?
Yeah, that's what we're
Say,
building
say
in.
that one more time, when
If a child's leaving the classroom to get special services,
a letter goes home?
can we make sure that
Or an
some
email.
communication?
Well, yeah,
Yeah. So, for example, these
Before
MTSS
it
letters
begins.
Yes.
do that. And that's kind of the process with kind of some of our specialists too.
I also want to make a point about letters too. Letters shouldn't substitute for a good old fashioned.
Right.
No,
I want to be really clear that like, and also letters typically get put in folder and file folders. That, you know, a record, I don't necessarily want that either. Like, I just want to be careful that we're not just relying on letters. I don't want to be
We're
a
gonna-
district that just sends a letter and just backs away.
So-
Like, it should be, you should be calling, I mean, I call parents all the time. I would expect that I call parents for good things and I call parents when kids are struggling. That's what I would want.
Okay,
Yes.
parents aren't always available for a phone call and neither am I as a teacher. So what I do is I send an email and say, please let me know
That's fine.
when you would like to set up a phone call.
Okay.
So there's a paper trail, a digital paper trail.
Yeah.
The communication has been made. Maybe
That's fine.
I forward it to my husband, so he sees it too. And then we're all in the loop. And then we can actually find that at 3:40, we're all available.
There you
I
go.
just think like so many times as a teacher, like, shoot, I have lunch, I'm calling. The other
Oh, no,
person's
no,
unavailable.
I just mean the spirit of connecting in ways that
totally
are,
get it.
that
I
are
just-
more back and forth.
Rather than a
than
form
one
letter,
way.
you also get a form letter, your child's an MTFS, well, how come I don't know about that?
Yeah.
Right?
Right, well,
What
so that's why we're
happened?
sending
I just want two-way communication.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm agnostic as the form of communication. I think it's probably should be up to the teachers to know their students and know their families to decide on what that communication is. What I am suggesting is, and I'm concerned because this has come up several different times, several different ways, that parents are feeling that their students move into a student services role or start obtaining student services before the parents are notified.
I hear
And
that.
so what I'd like to make sure that we do is have a control in place that when a decision like that is made, that some communication goes to family. It's not necessarily level 1 to level 2, and it doesn't have to be a form letter. But that there is a control that letters or emails or phone calls or some effort to communicate is made for every student that has additional services. Is that fair?
Well, it's part of, I would think it's part of evaluation.
I
Process.
I agree. I just want to make sure there's a control in place that it happens. So,
Yeah, I mean, the control is that it's an expectation
Right.
from the supervisor to just like a lot of controls.
Yep. and it's tested so that, you go back and say, hey, let's just, you had 3 students where we pulled out class. Can you confirm that you had these conversations? Because I just don't want parents to get left behind. I want to make sure it's consistently applied.
Yeah, I mean, I think folks have to have faith that our job as evaluators and supervisors is to be explicit with teachers about what the expectations are. Part of our rubric is all about communication with families. It's a major thing, and so, yeah, I think that is a fair
Yeah.
measure to make sure that happens.
I just, but like, and of course, like the teachers that you're hiring are professionals and excellent, but like, if we've just had this conversation and really worked through some details that weren't clear, I think it makes sense to push that out to, principals and then have a
Absolutely.
clarifying explicit statement to have a baseline, and then you can check up on it, but like, how would I know, as a teacher, I'm not like sitting there watching this amazing
Right.
Well,
meeting.
But they know, but these conversations have happened. So we just
This
need
is,
to-
remember, evaluation is something that we're really pushing in the district, and we're really looking at things like, well, and community engagement's big, and MTSS is big. All of these things dovetail together
Right.
to really make sure that we're being very explicit. So your comments are really well taken, because I think that is really at the essence of what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that families are building the plane with us,
Yeah,
that they're not just seeing the plane fly by.
yeah. I
Yeah,
just think it's
how
worth
can
repeating.
you- How can you do it unless the points you made, if we're not telling them that their child is struggling, in our view, with a particular concept of skill, how can we expect them to engage with us to help the student?
I agree with you, and I think us agreeing is great. And I also think it needs to be repeated to teachers so that they hear it, so that this happens, so that we aren't waiting till next May for another forum when people are like, what the heck?
So it could
This
be
isn't
an
happening again.
email to teachers saying, hey, teachers, as a reminder, if you do X, whatever X is.
Yeah.
Be sure to communicate with families. Maybe that email will set a baseline. I don't know. I'm agnostic as to.
Oh, I think we go deeper than that. I mean, I
Yeah,
think
I
this
think
is,
it's
this
more
is,
than-
this is a really important point.
Yes.
It's about systems.
Yep.
Making sure the systems, everybody understands what the system is and what the process is.
Right, and teachers know, and teachers know that families are expecting this, because families have told us they're expecting this, and so on. So in the interest of kind of moving the agenda along, I'll kind of close this off at this point, but I think we've made clear what we're hearing from people, and you guys agree that it's important. So we'll keep that on the radar as it goes, but
Totally reasonable extra.
hopefully we don't have anybody who feels like they were left behind in the student services department. So,
Sorry to interrupt, could I just add one thing?
yes.
Just in this middle category, this happened to us and our family, and we were very glad that they were getting that services. We didn't really understand the tactics as a parent.
Right.
And only because one of the two students that doesn't like, of our kids doesn't like to be signaled out, that we started asking questions about the tactics. Like, we were very glad to hear that, oh, something happened and that made perfect sense to us as a parent. And I don't know what to do about that, but that middle ground is, I think, probably something that it certainly happened to us, but I think this is a great conversation to figure out how to do that better. But we're very glad, and we felt the district was very responsive as soon as we asked questions about it.
This is an important, important.
Sometimes parents don't know what tools are in the toolbox.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, I know, it's good.
And you're completely correct. Just for us to talk here is just lip service, but that's not what we're doing. So we
No,
are-
I know you're not.
We're gonna, just like we painted the door, we're gonna do that too.
That's right.
So we'll paint more doors. It's gonna be the theme of the year. So, absent any other comments from committee, any public comments that we have?
We do not, no.
Mr. Wong, anything else on your student services? Great, thank you very much. I think that shifts us to budget, resources, and governance. There are a few governance items here that do require committee attention and votes. They're indicated by
Yes.
double asterisks. I will turn it over to Dr. Sullivan, Superintendent of Schools, to lead us through those items.
So the first item I'd like to discuss is some consideration for all handbooks. Really, the purpose of the proposed handbook language is simply to put all participants on notice regarding bullying, hazing, harassment, and discriminatory behavior. The fact that it's unacceptable behavior, including while engaged in extracurricular and after-school activities. And part of ensuring that bullying, discrimination, harassment, hazing is not taking place in extracurricular activities is the appropriate monitoring of locker rooms and other facilities where these, unfortunately, where these things happen in districts all around, not just the Commonwealth, but the whole country. Privacy considerations, of course, apply, and any gross negligence would never be part of any type of release which we would ask for, which in essence, we would be asking for in the best interest of supporting students so that we can guarantee that they're not being hazed, bullied, harassed within school locker rooms and other places when when participating in an extracurricular or sports activity. So what I have for your consideration is some handbook language that I would like to show you. And if it's okay, there we go, that's a little better. If it's all right, Chairman Dial, I'd like to maybe read this out loud. Or do you think that's too, I mean, you guys can clearly read it.
Yeah. I don't think we need to read it out loud in the interest of time. I think we all have it in front of us and we can
Okay.
take a minute.
I was
or two.
thinking for the,
Um,
I guess I could read it on the screen.
Yeah. The question I would have that would, while people are looking over this in front of them, we talked about this before, you mentioned waivers. We do currently receive waivers from students participating in athletic intramural or intramural activities.
Yes.
So the change here in this handbook is not a change that is to require waivers that we already do. The change here is to enhance the language to clearly reflect that there will be supervision in locker rooms. And that parents are consenting to that, both through the handbook and then also in the waiver.
There you go.
So,
It's correct. We would have to update our waiver a little bit, just to be explicit with the language in this handbook.
so what I wanted to make sure people realized is that this is not necessarily approving new language about granting waivers of legal liability.
Correct.
The material change here is that the waiver will include a consent provision that consents to a student being supervised by appropriate and correct gender people in locker room scenarios where that's applicable. So,
With privacy enabled for
Yes.
all students.
so I'll give everyone a moment to read it, but if there are any questions, I'll open it up to the committee.
As people are reading, I would just say that athletic director Steve last night addressed this in some detail. I thought he did a very nice job. I like to say to him afterwards, he handled that very well. So I think
Good.
anytime you can constantly just put that in front of parents and say there are things that are happening that are different, but I thought he did a nice job.
That's good to hear. That's great.
Mr. Kearney?
I love it. I just wish we could add it for the parents at these games. Some of these parents are out of their minds. when you go to these games.
Oh, you mean
Especially
supervisor?
basketball. I mean, it's just that, there should be something like when we do enter our buildings, that you respect our students, you respect our buildings. You do see that in other school systems. I just think that some of the,
It's certainly an expectation here, and I hope that we don't run into any situations this year where we have someone who's a
no, I
spectator.
love this. I think this is a good way to educate and prevent things from happening because, if you tell them, look, this is inappropriate.
It's explicit.
And you were told up front, you signed on it, we expect you to carry yourself as you do in the classroom to extracurricular activities.
Sure.
I don't want to lose that privilege, as Ms. Ted alluded to. Mr. Tony did address that as a privilege to have these extracurricular activities.
So just so it's clear, what we move to do is put this in, after we talking, is put this in the handbook and then add to the waiver.
Mr. McClellan? No comment. Ms. St. Ange?
No.
Great. So to the point, Dr. Sullivan, I think what we are looking for is a motion to approve the proposed handbook language as presented at the September 7th meeting of the Cohasset School Committee, with the understanding that the waivers that we request will also be amended to include the associated consent. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it passes unanimously. So,
Thank you. Thank you for,
Dr. Sullivan, please affect the inclusion of the handbook language and operationally, you are authorized to make any changes to the waivers as you see
We will.
fit to affect that resolution.
yep, we'll put that in immediately and folks will be signing off on handbooks within the next few days anyway, so that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another item requiring double asterisk committee vote. This is the district/student family handbook,
Yes.
which we have as our agenda item F2. Dr. Sullivan, if you'll please lead us through the discussion here.
Absolutely. So we do have currently a district student family handbook, which serves as a kind of a synopsis / guide of many of the policies that are referenced. And I say policies, of course, anytime I say policies, it's school committee.
Right.
So that are referenced in the individual school handbooks. Eventually, I would move to consider not having this handbook because quite frankly, I think the policies themselves, which are listed on the website, take care of it. Doing some research, there aren't a lot of districts that I found that have a district handbook. It's usually the handbooks in the schools reflect the policies and have certain policies in them that are consistent. I think we've done a really nice job over the past few years of making those consistent. And certainly the school committee's done a very nice job in cleaning up some of the policies to reflect mask and other effective policies. So right now, though, we do reference it in various places throughout all of our handbooks. And the handbook, the district handbook is up to date. So I would move that the handbook changes that we have here would be accepted. And we would, because it's a handbook, that you would approve the handbook so that we can have this for one more year and then really look to clean up our handbooks to remove references to the district handbook for next year.
Yeah.
Just because I just feel like it's just begging for errors, and I don't want to be overcomplicated with smaller handbooks that reference a larger handbook. There's just too many errors to be made when you have the policies plainly written in a policy manual that's on the website. Yes.
Dr. Sutton, so there's, I think the element for committee vote is to approve this handbook.
Yes.
Are there material changes to this handbook?
There are, and I have this here, that you can see a summary of the changes from the last time it was approved, which was last year. We changed district student handbook to district student parents handbook to district student family handbook, which is considered the appropriate language for that. Class school department personnel, updated school committee members and school personnel on page 9. We replaced the district calendar. We changed the holiday observances. We removed it. And because basically we could not possibly encompass all the holidays with all the many really things that are out there. So we just kind of ace that. And then we added a new wheel of social emotional learning that's more appropriate. We put the district curriculum accommodation plan, which at some point, perhaps in an update in the future, maybe next meeting, we present that plan.
Yes.
Because our DCAP was a very collaboratively worked upon document that does set out our accommodation plan for the district, and that's been revised. And it's operational, but it would be something in here. We should present that, I think. And then the good work of the school committee, all the policies that, quite frankly, should stand alone anyway, in my opinion, that are in the handbook.
So that issue for the school committee right now is the limited question of whether we approve the newly named district student family handbook for the 22-23 school year.
That's correct.
So any comments, concerns from the committee? No? If so, wait for it. I'd entertain a motion to approve the district student family handbook as presented to the school committee on the September 7th, 2022 meeting.
So
Second.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the district student family handbook is approved as presented to the school committee. Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. Please
Thank you.
issue the handbook. I also think that you have tacit approval from the school committee to proceed with work to remove references to the district student family handbook and later in our next approval of the annual handbooks, such that this can be retired and we will
Yes.
save 111 pages of printing time.
Yes. And you'll see when we'll take out language in the other handbooks. And that, in
Yeah.
essence, will eliminate this.
Yeah. We'll work on it over the course of the year.
Yes.
All right, so that has been, that has been approved. Now we'll continue moving on the budget, resource and governance to buildings and school property update.
I'll turn to Sue Owen, our Director of Finance and Operations. I know that we tried to put the pictures at the beginning so you could see them. So this should be fairly just descriptive.
Right, so we mentioned that we're working on putting a crosswalk designation, where you saw the cones, which were temporary. So I had a conversation, we had a meeting with the police and safety, and that came up. So I think we're we're waiting on.
Yeah, and just to be clear, because we do have a newly paved Sawyer Street, which needs a crosswalk in that place, and we've been very sensitive to that. That's coming in the next week, we hope. What Sue was talking about is what Mr. Kearney had referenced, the corner of the athletic area. The loop,
In the back by the bus.
near alumni, sorry.
So we're working on that. The track update, I know we're all waiting. It's been, the initial coating has been put down and I've been waiting for it to cure, as they call it, or settle. The tentative date that they're coming back out is the 14th.
Yeah, we're actually waiting for them to put the layer down so it will cure and settle.
Right.
They put the
base.
They put the base
Now
down,
they're
right?
gonna finish.
We're just waiting for them to come and back up
Right,
from work, but
um,
we're
so-
still on schedule.
We are on schedule. We're next on their list. They were expecting to come September 12th or 13th. I heard today it might be the 14th, just because of the rain we had yesterday.
That's right.
Put them off by a day. They're hoping to be completed by September 27th or 28th. The line markings would come after that, but it would be usable. It takes they're building some rainy days, so it takes about 14 to 15 dry days. So they put in a buffer a few days just to be safe. So.
Right,
so
we get
far,
any more wet weather,
so
we'll
far,
push back.
we're on-
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do about that.
Right, the press box you saw, I know the outside is done, the inside is not complete yet, we have some wiring that has to be done and equipment to be put back in. But that, for the outside is pretty much done, they finished ready for that 12th hour on that one, getting everything done. The science lab, you saw the pictures, that's been, I heard from one of the teachers, that's been 7 years in the waiting.
Yeah.
Is what one of the teachers said to me. I said, so, that's done, it's up and running, like, that's stuff I said, they have, they haven't put their cabinets in or hung anything on the walls, because that also all got put together over the weekend. So it was very, last minute, but we were waiting for installs and plumbers and electricians, so, that's definitely, happy to see that happen, and we have a new teacher in there who's thrilled. to
Well,
have-
the irony is I went in today and there's all these new students in there who have never been in the room. And a new teacher who never saw what it looked like before. So I'm like, what do you think? And they're like, oh, it's good. It's, and well, you didn't see them before, they don't understand. It's a nice serviceable science firm. And it wasn't that way before, so.
Right.
It's good.
It looks great, it looks
How
great.
nice that that's all they ever know.
I know, it was just fun. Look on their faces, I realized you have no concept of what it was.
Well, it's not that great. It's good, but
Correct. It's
we can do better. We're doing the best we have.
it's still small.
With what we
world.
had to work with, that's right.
Yeah.
And then the Day Hill Courtyard update, which we saw beautiful pictures, that was all grant donation. And I know when Pat and I did our walkthrough on the 30th, we were a little concerned because there was boards through the entrance of Deer Hill and just piles of dirt
Oh, yeah.
out in the courtyard.
Those guys are pros, because the scope of that night draw job, that
We
was
had
like,
no idea how they were gonna pull it all together and put the stone in and get everything done, but they
They
got
did
it, they got it done. So that was exciting. It took, a lot of, took a village to build that, I
Yeah.
guess.
for some really good people and
It's
good
beautiful, yeah.
companies.
Transportation, we talked about, first 2 days have been great, knock on wood. We're fully staffed and we have 2 spare drivers, so that's great news. We have one more, it's just waiting to take her test, so we could have possibly a third one. We may, based on ridership, we may have to add another route. Some of our buses, I think all but 2 are pretty much at close to or at capacity.
And that's great, because and as long as it's safe and comfortable for the kids, it's safer for everyone if the kids are on the buses, let's just put it that way. It cuts down on the traffic, the kids are safer, they're on the bus. It's a good situation.
So we are, with transportation this year, being more diligent with taking attendance to see how many riders are actually on the bus. Because the registration says there's 77 kids, doesn't necessarily mean they're all on that bus. So, and they're gonna take attendance and they're gonna have a list of names. So it's very important to have your bus pass. I know for the first week or 2, bus passes aren't gonna be required, but after, I think, the middle of September, they'll be required to get on the bus. And if you're
Will
not
they be scanned or are they just,
They just have to
visually?
have them visually.
how does that change, how does that help with the keeping attendance names?
That way, we're still in the process, but I think there's gonna be a clipboard with a list of the children that are on that bus. And they can check them off as they get on.
The bus drivers will do that?
After 2 weeks, they won't need to look at their past. They'll
Right.
know
No,
like
it-
Billy, John.
It's not as profound in a smaller district like Cohasset, but it does keep people, because you want your child riding the correct bus. And, we want to make sure that we don't have a kid going with another kid on a bus to go to somebody's house when the parent has no idea about it. We're just really trying to keep our supervisory obligations intact. In bigger districts, it becomes a major issue.
Right. So.
We're not the MBTA.
Right, last year there was about 753 riders. This year, there's about 765, and we have, I don't want to call it a wait list. We have probably 15 families that are just registering now. So they're not waiting on the bus yet, because we're just trying to figure out which buses they can be on, and do we need to add a route? And out of all that ridership, the new TransFinder, I call it the parent GPS, there's 162 parents, so families signed up for that right now, so.
I'd love to hear input on how that's
We
going
couldn't
for
get it to work.
families.
Oh, did you just sign up?
You couldn't get to work?
Yeah,
163
it didn't work for us. Now, it's only day one, but
Okay, so what do families do if it doesn't
If
work?
it doesn't work, I would reach out to Jerry, Jerry Lynn Ballard, who's
Mm-hmm.
in the central office. She's kind of the expert
Yes.
on,
And we're really looking for input on this because it's something I think can really help families.
yes, we were very excited about it.
Yeah, we
because-
want to get that working for you,
Yeah.
sure.
So
Yeah.
that's something.
so that's great, I mean, that's great news.
Jerry, Rich.
It relieves parents wondering of where's the bus, where's my child? So that was great. The other thing we're working on, I don't know if Pat has a picture we can put up.
Yeah, I do.
It's a school bus,
All kinds of pictures.
possibility
tonight.
of a school bus parking lot.
Before we move on to the school bus parking, we're very excited. I will say, just passing on some feedback from the community and me as a parent, not a chair. But the school bus routes on the elementary are long. And
Are what?
Long. And they are arriving, the elementary school students, so my son did not arrive home until, I think it was 4:30 today,
Oh, the return.
the return.
Okay.
And so that's a very late return. My son did
4:30.
4:30 in the afternoon. That's a very late return. So I wonder if there's, and I've heard that from from other parents, so
What bus?
3.
And is it just for right now or including last year too, or just?
The last year was
right-
also a long route, and so that one also didn't come. The 4:30 was pretty late today.
Yeah, I
That's
saw
an
your
hour.
bus
That
route
doesn't make
today,
any sense,
Lance, and I was shocked. I dropped my kids off on Lambert's Lane. And I was shocked that I had received my children walk, full disclosure. They had walked home, changed clothes, had a snack, gone to the bathroom, and I got them to a basketball clinic on Lambert's Lane before your bus got to, because then I passed your yard and I was like,
Oh.
holy, or yours stopped.
Yeah.
I was like,
So maybe
"Jeez."
this was
Yeah,
an issue
just a
with
little-
that bus.
So, well.
Well, the schedules, I think the schedule return is like 4:15. So it's still, I mean, it's structurally scheduled to be a pretty long route. And there are a couple pretty long routes out there that get the smaller kids home.
Okay.
Because I feel there's some concerns from parents who are on the longer end of those, wondering about whether their kids would have any time for activities, whether they are, and some people have said that they're just worried that their kids are gonna go from home to school to dinner to bed. And like, they don't have a life after school because so it's something to look at. You mentioned, there's a consideration. If we have room for another route, then let's think
Right, we're
about that.
considering that. Also, I think bus 3 or route 3 has one of our new drivers.
And she was great, by the way. So she was very,
So
very kind.
it may just take her a little bit to get,
Could be. Oh, it's also, I think it also has like 78 kids. So it's a fully packed route. So
they're all.
Well, there's the first wrinkle I've heard with buses, because buses are tough. They're tough everywhere. My kids' buses are late, they get late to school.
Right.
And we've had
Track it.
really good, I mean, the drop-offs have been great. I didn't hear it, of course, this is a secondary school. So I didn't hear any complaints about
Length. No, but that's
yesterday.
good to know, because we.
So
can-
this is something we'll adjust and learn from. Yeah. Good, we'll look at that.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
feedback. That's great.
Secondary.
So it's probably a really good point to just make to everyone. If you are experiencing bus related issues, like make the district know, make it known to the district. Or reach out to one of us, so as we know, because just like your anecdote here, I mean, there's gonna be some growing pains as there is most years. I mean, Dr. Sullivan said it before, transportation is it's logistically a very challenging circumstance, there's more to it than meets the eye.
Yeah.
So please listen, I mean, we can and will do better, but we gotta know what's going on out there, so.
So, and another point that, and I'm glad to hear that you'll be taking attendance and we get ridership figures, because what I would predict based on my own behavior and behavior of families that I know about is that students will walk home or be car pickups instead of doing a long bus ride.
Yeah.
And so I would surmise that you're gonna have, 78 kids on the way in, 40 kids on the way home. So, and if you see that, then something may not.
But you haven't had issues with the pick, we haven't had issues in 2 days with the buses arriving late,
Arrivals seem to work.
but just interesting because it's the same route.
Right.
So like,
Really weird.
yeah, so but there's a lot of factors there, like we also have to look at dismissal from Osgood, what that might be doing.
And I think we're also at the end of that bus drop off and at the end of the pickup. So our pickup it's a 4-hour bus ride in.
That's too long,
So.
it's
but,
just too long, so.
I mean, it's beginning of the year, let's look into it.
Right.
Are you,
Good data.
certain age level, their parents have to be at the bus to get them
Yeah,
off,
kindergarten.
correct?
Okay,
Kindergarten.
Yep.
My bus driver always had them be like there forever, which I appreciated for safety, but like that might be taking time at this point in the year too. Just getting people.
hour.
Oh, no, I mean, I
Well-
saw that bus today and I was going to bring it up, but Lance
It
did.
may have been
before
they
me.
weren't back at home until 4:30, which means the bus dropped out at like 4:15, 4:20. And there was a walk up the hill, but it's a long.
What we'll do is we'll track everything. We'll go back and we'll look at the route. We'll talk to Ray. We'll look at what
And
happened.
we'll look at the parking
And-
times.
And there's a couple,
Arrival
so
times.
Route 3 is one that I'm on, and then I think, I can't remember what the number is, but I remember looking at the
Yeah.
routes when they were published. And there's another one that ends in the four handle, so.
Well, I mean, clearly we haven't had a chance to talk to Ray today, we're right here.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but
And
that
no,
will
it's, I
be,
think,
that's,
I want to say routes 4 and 5 are the only two that still have room to put kids on,
and that gives us some thoughts for tomorrow.
which we could add a route.
Yeah.
Add another bus,
Mhm.
if that's what we have to, so I mean, we'll definitely,
No, thank you
Look
for
into
telling
that.
us that. It's good to know.
it's good to know.
Sorry, that was a delay.
No, transportation is hard. And we're running a school, not a FedEx, so it's, anyway, so please,
Sure.
so.
So there's a potential spot for a, school bus parking lot that, I have to, kudos to Pratt again, he's on a mission. So if you look at this picture, it's an aerial view, so off to the left, you'll see Deer Hill.
Was this from 1950 or
So
something?
there's Sawyer
It's actually
Street.
Area 51.
Yeah, you'll notice the wagon and horses. That's
This
Sawyer
is a
Street.
Google Earth from
Sawyer
today.
Street, front lawn of Deer Hill.
Yep, so it'll be
you can
coming
see-
up.
Right,
I can't.
so you can see Deer Hill on the left.
Okay,
You can see
yes.
the cars, you can see,
You see where the arrow is? You're moving up. This is where you're going
Black
down towards
Mountain.
Osgood. But before you get to Osgood, there it is.
Oh, right there.
it's right there.
Why don't we think of
It
it?
looks like a fence. We did talk about
Grass.
that. It's
It's
grass.
all grass, it's cleared, it's a
Pretty
big
lovely.
rock there. It will also add 20 parking
20 parking
spaces.
spots.
Wow.
For
In
Deer
addition
Hill?
to the buses.
In addition to the bus.
Can we turn that whole thing into parking? Well, I mean, if
Now,
we're,
is that the one we
It drops
talked
off.
about at the last meeting, a couple of meetings ago?
No.
It's a bigger spot than you think in that picture.
Because where were we talking?
You don't know where it
Happened
is?
in the last
No.
2 weeks,
No, of course you do, when did this
I'm
happen?
confused. This is a great
within the
spot.
last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
This is
3
a great
weeks,
spot.
maybe.
yes.
I'm confused.
How did this take 60 years to say,
So-
hey, here's.
We were
this
looking at a
spot.
different spot.
We were.
Behind the softball
Behind,
field.
behind.
Yes.
Okay.
It didn't really make sense.
So that wasn't panning out
It's like
for
a
a few
$200,000
reasons.
project just to touch.
So this is a project that I think makes much more sense
Yeah.
in so many ways. And it also could potentially, it's got plumbing there, so it could potentially be a water there.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's not plumbing, it's water. So it could potentially be plumbed and have
A small building.
a small building, for
The bus
for
driver.
bus
Drivers to
drivers.
use the facility?
Correct.
Could they have a hydration station?
Make sure we get them out.
To the outside.
So-
So that's, where is the entrance? I don't know, I can't.
does this need to be worked
Yeah,
on?
will you show with your mouse where the entrance to Deer Hill is so that.
Yeah, so this is
even though it's what, it doesn't look like,
That's
you know,
it. It's an entrance on the street.
this is Sawyer Street. See where the arrow is?
So, yeah.
Oh, all right.
This is coming up the Deer Hill
There's
entrance,
a parking lot, so that,
right? So,
So
It's
imagine
nothing
you're going to
grass.
do a
so Deer,
concert.
this is going here. So Deer Hill entrance is right here. Paul? That's the Deer Hill entrance. So if you, I can't look at that and do this. So if you're coming up and you go down here, you drive it and then you're going, oh, it's good, but you're not. You're going to this parking lot.
yeah, the music circus, that's pretty good. I love
It
that.
just makes so much sense.
It's fine. It's a little parking lot. I mean, it
Makes sense.
it was like an amazing, like, oh, yes, that's
That's a great.
Driveway.
Sometimes it's right in front of you.
Like, why wouldn't we put it there?
But does this need, I mean, I'm assuming we're talking about getting this cleared and paved and.
Sue, do you have more information on that?
Yes, so we're in the very beginning stages, so
Yeah,
I
that's
just
awesome.
got the documentation from the engineering company yesterday on what it's gonna take to do all the site work, and it's about $10,000. So, I mean, that just happened yesterday.
Just $10,000 for everything? We're talking like 200
There's
grand.
no
No,
way
no, no.
it's 10,000.
This is the,
So the
just the
site plan.
engineer
Okay.
and the site plan.
Yeah.
Give us the
We
plan.
don't know, that will then tell us what the actual cost is gonna be.
Well, we're spending 40,000 right now, just.
I don't imagine this is a very complex project. I don't really know what I'm talking about. It looks,
put a
it
quote
looks
there
pretty
for our
simple to me. It's pretty flat as it is, and it just looks like it would be an
And
easy
for
parking
6
lot.
more?
I don't know. How much
So,
they-
I mean,
And-
it's in the preliminary stages, but it's just like popped up and it's a great.
So this is a great idea. I again, want to move things along, but I think
Right.
you hear, any concerns to the school committee? We're not gonna do a resolution, obviously, but I think you have full tacit approval from the committee to explore this as an option, maybe even make it a little bigger.
There's no
To.
problem.
But frankly, it's out of vision lines too, so I mean, you could do some alternative stuff
So
there.
you may, it will probably be on, it may hit the capital list. They talked about putting on,
This is a win.
Maytown, the
Yeah, it's a
Maytown
win.
meeting.
It's a win for the town.
Great job,
Win
Mr.
for the
Pratt
kids.
and Ms. Owen. Thank you for your tenacity in finding us a place to put our buses. Or,
So hopefully that works out. The other thing, the vending machine will be here tomorrow.
Oh, wow, all right.
So, you know, it's been ordered since February, but
Watch your texts, Paul. I
we
will
would
be
come
sending
and
you a
it'll be
picture of the
here
vending machine
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Can't wait to get a sandwich on.
I just want to see the machine at this point.
Other than that, I don't have anything else. I mean, it's just, like I said, I have to say kudos to the custodians because they really, you know, they really embraced their new responsibilities and, you know, there's gonna be some catch up that they're doing right now, but once they've got it maintained, I mean, I know that by the bus loop, that hill was just all vines and they spent a lot of
Yeah, they
time
did.
clearing that.
Yep.
So they really did, you know, as Pat and I walked around, there were a lot of nitty gritty things that we were saying, what about this, what about this, what about this, what about this, and they hit pretty much almost all of it.
And there's some serious work that needs to be done in terms of the sidewalks and the edges of driveways that just get beat up by plows and, you know, there's just no avoiding that, but I agree with you.
Other than that, just, it's been busy, it's been a busy summer, a lot going on.
It was busy.
A lot of projects.
Busy, short,
completed.
productive summer.
before I open it to the committee, we have not had, and I know we were closing the books, but we haven't had a budget update in a bit. Just want to get your read on where we are, either informally or when we'll be ready for having
The next meeting,
next meeting.
I'm gonna give you a summary of the closeout of 2022 and the first few months of 2023.
Great. Right. Any additional comments, questions, compliments from the committee? Mr. Carr?
Okay, so one question. Field. Steve did a great job talking about the field and staying off the field. It strikes me that's a labor intensive exercise to keep it off during that period when
The track.
the track has to be left alone.
Yeah.
Do you all have a plan for that?
Not really, but we're going to, we will come up with one.
Something, it just seems-
We're really gonna, I mean, it's gonna be one of those things
Yeah.
where like. we're
When
gonna
is
have
that
to-
happening?
So right now, the work's gonna start on the 14th, and that means that no one can go onto the turf. You can't cross the track.
Yeah.
You can't really play on the turf because even though I was trying to figure out. Or if you look at the out of bounds, like it's right on the track for some sports, so there's just no way you're gonna be able to
It's
do
no
it.
way, it will be completely shut down.
It would, yeah, so we're gonna have to, from the 14th through at least the 28th, probably the next week, I'm thinking, if we get a few more rainy days. We're gonna have to do that. But the good news is because they did start a little bit later than they had originally intended, we were able to get one of our, at least one contact, I know the football game, this Friday's football game was moved back home. We had originally had that over to.
So is that, so like my daughter does field hockey on that field on Sundays, and their practice was there on Sunday.
Yeah.
And all practices are scheduled to be there. Has
Yeah.
that, it's been communicated to them, like we talked about last?
So again, they can still play on it
On the
until
until the 14th.
the 14th.
Right, but like all outside parties know about that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Steve,
because I know about it, but I wasn't hearing anything about it from them.
So this is, I'll double check with,
Okay.
but I, based on our last meeting, I asked him that explicitly and he said, yes. He has told every group the timeline. And so if that's not the case, it's,
And then are they given an alternative field to play on? Like, do they use the front field instead?
he's good. I don't know what, I know he has a plan. I don't know where everybody's going, but I know like all the games are gonna be, like he's moved all the games away. Away,
I just think like,
and I'm sure he's designated certain fields for the practices.
okay, great. I just want to make sure, you know, I mean, you don't want to mess with
He's
youth
been
sports and
very
parents.
involved in it. Because he's, you know, he's concerned. There's a lot of things that he has to move
For
around.
sure. Yeah.
and in future conversations with facilities and finance should definitely be had around turf in the timeline and plan for the turf, which seems to be a little in question right now and shifting. And we just want to be really explicit with the facilities finance committee, the school committee, and then the whole community about when that's happening, so we can make a decision together regarding it. Because right now it's, you know, they're hopeful they'll be able to do work in the fall, moving into the winter, but we all know that could be somewhat problematic depending on what the temperatures are in December. Then the alternative plans is what we'd have to discuss. So I think there's some conversations to be had about that, but right now it's track focused.
It's like, you know, it's the traffic that goes to Milliken before and after school and stuff like that. I just want to make sure
I know.
someone's thinking through that.
Completely agree. I was even wondering if we could put up a temporary fence
Yeah.
or something that would block it. So we'll be working on that.
Okay.
You'll be hearing about it.
Security comments from you?
Yeah, well, tomorrow we have a food and services subcommittee, Greg.
That's a Zoom meeting, right?
Yep, looking forward to that, just FYI.
Sure.
As far as, I got a couple things. We do have to do another annually walkthrough, so. the
Capital walk.
Capital walkthrough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we want to kind of schedule that sooner than later, which I'm always thinking is very helpful to see. You know, we have everybody from every department go through, so the town actually sees it. So that, to me, that's really powerful and important message, especially with some of the capital budgets, of the stuff that we still haven't got funded or we have to refund. And one of the things is the AC. Where are we with that?
The AC,
The units on the
Allocated
gyms.
$500,000. Where is that? Is that in the account?
it's sitting in
Okay.
the capital account, and that will be added to, so that's one of the things that we're gonna only go to capital this
And we
year.
need more
We're
money.
gonna have to ask for additional.
Right.
funding To complete the project.
Right.
We're also probably gonna have to ask for additional funding for the turf. Because the prices of that have gone up.
Well, I hope not. See, that's part of
The
the.
track of the turf has gone up, the price. to-
I know. So that's part of the conversation that I think we should have as a facilities finance committee, because I want to talk about that concept
Okay.
and just make sure we're all in the same boat with it. Because there's I have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and we can talk about the touchless water systems as well, still on that.
So we do have touchless water systems. No, sorry. We have touchless soap and hand
Everything's
towels
touchless.
in every single bathroom.
Except for the faucets.
Yeah.
For faucets.
The
The
faucets.
faucets, because that's more of a cost.
That's-
Okay, well, at least get the cost and see what we can do.
We did have the cost initially when we did, because that was the first thing I wanted to get
Right.
COVID. And
Yeah,
it was pretty astronomical, but honestly, what stopped that more than the cost was the backlog,
It was like
because every single school
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in America
Okay.
wanted
12 to
that.
14 months.
So we can revisit that.
We should
right?
revisit
So let's
that.
revisit that. Like you said, the vending machines here, touch systems. Also too, is if we could bring the statement of accounts, which we all have. Apparently, there was money taken out of the athletics department.
Revolving account,
Revolving account, so I want to really dive into what we're doing with some of that money in the revolving. accounts.
where it went, yep.
Because they kind of set the plans off of, I know we're having the fitness center, which I think is really important. Also too is the lockers in the high school. I don't know, Ted, my kids, I don't know about yours, but I literally am gonna bring in one of their packs
They,
here.
they don't.
And it's just, and they yell at me.
Oh, the weight of the
See, that's the problem. When everybody says they don't use lockers, it's because they say they don't use the lockers. That's not normal. It's not normal for kids to walk around with 60, 70-pound bags in the back. We gotta make the lockers work. You know, the idea that no one uses them, and I think that's just like, it's like craziness, you know?
No, no one uses them for a couple of reasons. One of them is that they're broken.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
let's start there. And also too, is I think that, see, when we do talk about capital, let's bring up the lockers, not only with the students being have access to putting the stuff away, we're gonna be adding some after-school programs, hopefully in the future, where kids can bring their locker. And also too, is the lockers in the locker rooms themselves, at the sports level. It's needs to be renovated, all those.
Yeah, it's funny because
locker rooms
that,
we're
I
talking
don't think you're wrong with that, but that certainly has taken a backseat to the middle school lockers, which were
Which
replaced.
work now, which is
They
great.
work now.
Yeah,
But the high school lockers, it's not just the lock mechanisms. Some of them are like pushed.
What section of the agenda are we on? Like, what are we talking about lockers for?
So
Like,
we
what-
are talking about.
I'm talking about the facility meeting. I'll wrap it up real quick. I want to make sure that we put that in and that it's necessary that people know about it. That's all. So, to your point, we'll bring it up.
I guess we went back to
I
building
don't
the
know.
school property.
Oh, okay, all right.
Well, we were doing budget resources and governance, so it's fine into that. But, any comments for any?
No,
Ms. Allen?
No comment.
All right, I think that concludes budget resources and governance, except for one report. Mr. McCollum, we usually look to you for the report from the school facilities committee. This is the Barton Town Committee about our overarching school facilities.
no new updates since the last one surrounding the MSBA senior study that is being conducted on September 27th or 8th
9A.
at 9 a.m. And there's certain representatives from town attending that. So it's a private meeting, walkthrough, evaluation of the facilities. So it's an exciting next step in the project, but no new updates from that. We've given that update at the last meeting.
Yes.
Great. All right, so then we'll move on. We close off at item F. We'll move to our report from our school committee subcommittees. We have, from our last meeting, we now have 4 school committees. I can speak for school governance subcommittee, which is myself and Ms. St. Ange. We have not met, so I don't think we have any updates. Have we met?
Nothing to report.
So, then we have budget and resources. I think we heard Mr. Kieran, you talk about some potential items for that, the committee to do and Mr. Carr on. So we can take that report as written as read, or read as written. Communications subcommittee, Mr. Carr, you and Ms. St. John, any updates on the communications subcommittee?
Should meet.
Yeah.
Start with that one.
Finance, we need to meet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
We have to talk about.
that's budget and resources, so that's, Mr. Kieran, Ms. Carr. And then, Mr. McCollum, food service and nutrition subcommittee, newly created subcommittee.
Well, we're gonna be meeting tomorrow. Mr. Kieran mentioned it earlier, so it'll be the first sort of meeting that we have. So we're working on it.
Excellent. I'll just, for committee, school committee liaisons, I can't imagine we've had enough time to have any reports, but I'll just leave it open to any, Mr. Carr.
Principal Scott sent out a very nice note indicating that my colleague and I are their people. So we're very glad to see
Very
that.
nice. And school council.
School council.
Excellent. Great. All right. Now we'll do agenda item H, our school committee governance. There are no topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair. I did not reasonably anticipate the success of the school bus parking update, but that's actually on the agenda, so that's fine. Then approval of minutes. I don't believe we have any minutes for this meeting. Is that correct? I don't remember seeing any.
You look at both of us, but no.
It was general direction.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I felt
Actually-
a lot of eye contact.
Well, you've just been so prolific with
I know,
that.
you know what?
But
I hit a
Yeah.
little bit of a productivity wall, and
Yeah.
decided to have some family time.
It's.
But I'm back.
You did
I'm
start
back.
school too,
I
so.
still in school. Yes.
It's a little.
But it's also on me. I need to take over now that we're caught up. So we'll catch up.
We'll get there.
Great.
Physical side.
Future agenda items, I will note some from discussion that I have, and then I'll open it to the committee, see if there's one, just as general note, I think Ms. Andrew had a great suggestion of in our 2023 meetings to have some of the academic demonstrations as part of our kind of voice of the school tour presentations. I do think we'd like to have given our detailed conversation, a update on the controls around notifications of families on interventions, to see if we've got something there. I can't even remember what it's called now, the NESAC.
Yeah.
NEASC. That would be something for our next meeting as well, just an update on NEASC, what's going on.
Yeah.
And then finally, as a proposal for a future agenda item, I'd propose, and maybe this falls into teaching and learning, there've been a lot of press coverage about learning losses nationwide associated with the pandemic. And so I'd be curious to have an update from the administration on what the experience is locally with our Cohasset students and what controls and mitigants are we considering to help fight that.
I wonder if we can align that with just fall benchmark testing too.
Yeah, because it won't be done yet. I'm wondering if it's better to do it in October after we've completed our benchmark assessment.
So I'll defer to you
Yeah.
on when we have the most,
Yeah.
That makes the
effective,
most
but-
sense because then we'll have actually active
Yeah.
data to work from.
To be more quantitative data
Mm, Yeah.
so
than just qualitative.
any other thoughts for future agenda items from the other committee members? Or anything I missed?
Could we consider maybe quarterly or whenever it might fit, just an open discussion about school security, just to sort of educate the community? Just a few minutes and we just talk, here's what's happening, some things we're learning, something to consider.
I think that's a good idea. The tension in the public forum is there's only so much you want to disclose about
Correct.
security policy and whatnot.
Yep.
But I do think maybe that's something, Dr. Sullivan, we can
Well,
include in kind of its generic
Yeah.
school. overview.
I think we had when we did our Safe Schools meeting and opened it up, we did have the Quest Police present a version of the Alice training, so they understood, people understood what was happening. That's pretty much a very well-known, very easily researchable process. There's some other acronyms that they're using, ASHER,
Mhm.
that they're actually all really, there's another one too. They're very similar in their components, but I think it might be very, very reassuring to folks to hear
Keep
that.
it top of mind.
Whatever works.
Potentially having our school resource officer talk a little bit about that.
Yep.
It actually might be good just for you to get an update.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I feel
It's
like
a great
we should
idea.
just have our school resource officer update,
It's a great idea.
have a CPAC
Let's have him a
update.
special guest.
Yeah.
But we gotta get the officers of CPAC.
Yeah, no, but that would be an
I
update.
know,
That's an update.
yeah.
Not special.
Also.
I mean, not every time,
That's a high
just
idea.
peppered.
Completely agree.
All right, so hearing no other future agenda items, there's no reason to go into executive session. And with that, I would entertain, unless there's any public comment, last call for public comment. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Any opposed? No. The meeting is adjourned here at 8:54 PM. First one of the evening.
All right.
And Mr. Collins' fourth bottle of water.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.